I got this subscriber thing going on every time I click this scene. It comes up. Anyway, welcome, one and all to yet another episode of Wick TV. It's a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. Today, we ask a very important question, ladies and gentlemen. Women, what are they? And more importantly, perhaps, what should we do about them? We got some woman knowers in our
Hell yeah.
server today who've asked me to moderate a debate between them on what is a woman. So I am going to do just that. We have Hunter here and we have Lactoid. And I'm going to give the mic first to Hunter. Give people your spiel, tell people who you are, what you do, why we should listen to you, and your opening thoughts. Let's just take it away, boys. Go ahead, Hunter.
Okay. I'm Hunter Kozak. You can follow me anywhere. I have a long opening, so I apologize, but I'm going to just get started. There's a reason I chose to have this debate with someone like Lactoid, and also why I chose to have this debate years after the question has died down. Lactoid is someone who I've had conversations about categories with, and I'm having a conversation with him in particular because he is not a naive essentialist who mistakes maps for blueprints. He seems to recognize intuitively linguistic theories like prototypes, family resemblances, and language games. He seems to recognize that language and categorization is fluid and constructed. It's been 4 years since the Matt Walsh documentary, and I'm attempting to have this conversation now because 4 years ago it was rather difficult to be good faith and not be labeled a transphobe. This is because I will not clutch firmly to the definition of self-ID. Instead, demanding a single universal essence for women is itself a category mistake. The question, what is a woman, is very often equivocating several different questions and collapsing them into one. I think it's important we strip these down into different questions. So first, one, what determines which people are women? Two, how do people think they use the word women and other categories? Three, how do we typically organize objects into categories? Four, do we treat the category of woman as different from other categories? Five, are there different definitions of women? If so, what are they and which should we use? Six, is the SRY gene or biological sex operationalizable and coherent definition? 7, is the SRY gene a useful or good definition? 8, what do I think the best definition of a woman is? 9, does self-ID create a circular definition? Is it a valid, consistent, useful, or good definition? 10, who should institutions legally recognize as women? 11, how should we as a society recognize and treat women? 12, what should medical institutions do about gender dysphoria? That was a lot. I apologize. I will say, and we're going to break this down a little bit more. I will say that one of the answers to this question is still self-ID, and I will also say that some of these questions I'll knowingly and admittedly avoid. Some of my answers to these questions might piss off trans activists, but I hope that with a full understanding of what I believe, I will be understood as an ally. The reason there are so many misunderstandings regarding this question is that we often entangle metaphysics, semantics, and pragmatism. I'm a constructivist, descriptivist, and consequentialist. That means I firmly believe that society cannot be wrong about a category as it was socially constructed. When it comes to any category, there is no right or wrong. Rather, there is only a better or worse, and that the question of trans people being their preferred gender is not an ontological one, but a pragmatic one. I will hope to point out that converging sex and gender together might be perfectly valid, but it is hopelessly unhelpful and unenforceable. It is also completely antithetical to how people actually use gender in their lives, and so is quite a tough ask. But such is the conservative plight. They must frame everything they do as common sense while advocating for policies that are antithetical to how we as a society have always organized themselves. I also want to clarify, I have a degree in philosophy of language and I'm getting my master's in linguistics, and I'll be citing linguists like Cameron, Lakoff, Roche, Rorty, and Wittgenstein, and citing studies or theories of theirs. I hope that I don't come across as pretentious. I will try to dial down this conversation. I'm mostly citing these people for the viewers who want to do further reading. I hope to be earnest and good faith, and I hope you to be the same. That was it.
Okay, that was a lot. And I'm
That
sure
was
we're
a
going
lot.
to
I
get into it. All
apologize.
12 points, gang.
I
I
know.
hope you guys were taking notes. I sure wasn't. No, but thanks for being here. I'm looking forward to the discussion. And just to remind you before I let Lecto go, if you guys have questions for either of these young gentlemen, super chat them and I'll ask them as we can. Lactoid, take it away.
Hi, I'm Lactoid. You can find me at Lactoid TV on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. So I appreciate the nice things that Hunter said about me. I also have nice things to say about Hunter. He's a good guy. Maybe he might sound pretentious. I don't know. I'm going to sound pretentious. I have a doctorate in law, and I also thus have experience with working through language that is unnecessarily complicated and sometimes constructed to mean something that it might not seem to mean. And so, I also want to say, I know I'm not supposed to, really go in full response, and there's no way I wrote down everything you said, by the way. I got like a couple
that's fine.
points, so
Totally
that's 12
fair.
points. So you're going to have to go over them with me during this discussion. But you're right in that I think that there is a sort of common sense application that is very functional within society that conservatives often appeal to. And although I'm going to use that common sense as an argument in the sense of utility, I also understand that I'm here in a discussion about the ontology of a particular word. And so I'm not going to simply appeal to common sense in this debate as a tactic against you directly. I'm going to appeal to it for a different reason. Now, my definition of woman, and a little bit more background on this. There's been a couple subjects that I kind of go back and forth on. This is a subject that for a long time I probably would have been much closer to Hunter than I am now. But there was a couple of debates that I watched and a couple of discussions that I had with some people where I started just asking these questions, and I didn't get really good answers, I think. And there's some logical trees going down that I think kind of led me to my current position. Maybe Hunter, you can talk me out of it. But my current position, which is that the definition of a woman here is an adult biological female person, which is very specifically defined as a specific individual member of the species Homo sapiens sapiens with an absence of a Y chromosome as their sex chromosome, such as XX chromosomes as their sex chromosomes as opposed to XY. The reasons for this is that I think this definition has by far the fewest contradictions. It is the most globally accepted, which you sort of, I think, categorize as common sense. But I think that is actually, as you think you are a self-described utilitarian that you just said, I think that global acceptance and people seeing it as reasonable and common sense is important for the usage of the term, and thus provides more utility in terms of social interaction and the actual purpose of sex distinctions. And so, yeah, I just have a couple. I got some things written down, I guess, to ask, but a lot of it's going to be responses. So, Hunter, I mean, why don't you just go ahead and explain why, when I see a woman, and I think when most people see a woman, the assumption is, well, that's just a biological female. Why is that incorrect?
Yeah, should we just move into the general discussion?
Go ahead.
Okay, cool. I'll just answer that question. So, yeah, I would obviously concede that, largely speaking, the biology of a woman maps onto like the heuristics that we use when we recognize them. I think that you would also have to concede, though, that isn't always the case, right? Like that sometimes you're essentially getting it wrong.
You can misidentify biological realities, yes.
Okay. So I guess my question is, if you recognize that there are do you recognize that there are blurry boundaries between XY chromosomes? Like there are going to be DSDs, and that those make up about 2% of the population.
I think that there are. So in my research before this, it was significantly less than 2%.
Yeah, could I clarify that number?
Sure.
Okay, because it is kind of true that the amount of DSDs that exist in the population is sort of contested, but I think that largely speaks more to my point. 2% of people have a DSD.
Just for my audience's sake,
yeah,
DSD, you're gonna have to
is a disorder of sex development. So it's essentially intersex. It's the current good term to use.
Just wanted to make sure.
No, that's
everyone
fine.
knew, especially me, because who didn't?
No, sure. Intersex, yeah. I'll say intersex, but even though the technical term is DSD, 2% of the population is intersex. However, those 2% accompany people like a friend of mine. I have a friend named Anna who, when she was 22 years old, she had abdominal pain. She's a woman. She has, you would look at her, she's phenotypically female. You would see her. She's got, for all intents and purposes, she is a woman. However, she went to a doctor. They did x-rays on her chest. They found out essentially that she has a DSD. She has Turner syndrome, which means that she has an X chromosome, and she has essentially gonads in her, like internally. There is blurriness to any of these biological categories as well that are sort of different to the way that we socially recognize people.
Okay, just to be clear, and just because so my understanding is Turner syndrome is not the presence of a Y chromosome, it's the absence of one of the X chromosomes, so it's X blank. So
I can
And going back to my, and just to be clear, going back to my definition,
Mhm.
member of the species Homo sapiens sapiens with the absence of a Y chromosome. So under this definition, this would still be a woman because you have an X but no Y.
Sure. Then I would point to someone like Swyer syndrome, which has the SRY gene present, but is typical female phenotype.
You're talking about
So
so like androgen insensitivity.
yeah, there's
Yeah,
a
this
so
is a
I
man.
guess here's my point. Whenever we categorize things, we are not using these biological definitions, right? That this is essentially something that we've mapped onto later. We're always checking this against the way that we use language. There's a kind of a classic philosophical argument. I don't know if have you ever heard the story of Diogenes and Plato with like the what is a man?
Oh yeah,
Featherless
Yeah.
biped man.
Featherless. So Plato
behold the
says,
man.
"Behold a man." Yeah. So I'll clarify for the audience. Sorry. Um, Plato is basically like every definition has necessary and sufficient conditions, and they go, okay, so what's a man? And he goes, a featherless biped. Diogenes comes in with a chicken, and it's plucked, and he throws it in front of Plato, and he goes, behold, Plato's man. My question is, why doesn't Plato go, oh yeah, fuck, duh. I just called this a man. We all know this is a man. You just pointed us to a man. Like, why does he reject that this is a man, and thus the definition might be wrong?
Yeah, because I don't
Does that
think
make
that's
sense?
yeah, I don't think that's his actual
Like, what are we
definition.
checking this against?
I think that what that is an attempt to have a comprehensive definition that's imperfect and like easily defeatable with an exception, like a very
But what are
obvious
we?
exception.
No. Sure, this exception, but why aren't we just integrating that exception? What are we checking this against? I do have an answer, so I can just give my answer if you'd like. But I do think the answer is just
I mean,
usage. It's just how
yeah. I
because we
mean,
don't call the chicken
in
man.
other words, common sense, right?
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. But I would really point to I would say usage is the way that I would refer to it. That's how meaning is constructed through usage. My issue with creating this sort of like biological definition is we're always checking these biological definitions against usage, and we're sort of creating this middleman. It's almost like we're standing on a mountain. We've created a map for the mountain, and then we've like almost forgotten that the map was just made to describe the mountain, not to, like prescribe how the mountain is. So it seems like we've reconstructed these definitions. Sorry, are you a little bit lost?
No,
I don't know
I
if that
guess
made sense.
what I'm trying to explain. Okay, so I understand that there's going to be correlations between the general and some kind of like underlying definition that we use and the general characteristic that that thing is going to express itself with. But this is true for all taxonomic categories. You would agree that we would say, okay, we would define a human as Homo sapiens sapiens. But there's going to be certain humans
Like
potentially that are going to be,
libertarians.
yeah, like libertarians. They're going to be like distinct, I suppose. But that doesn't defeat the definition. We just
Wait,
simply
sorry, I'm maybe I don't get that. What do you mean? What do you mean? Sorry, I don't know if I got the libertarian joke. What?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. I don't. What do you mean?
well,
Sorry,
here, let's
humans
start with this.
are Homo
I was
sapiens sapiens.
calling them
Sure.
less than human.
Yeah,
Those are-
I
Yeah.
got that, but like then you said that there were actual exceptions to that rule.
Right. So you would agree that a human is a Homo sapiens sapiens, right?
Sure.
Okay. And so if I demonstrate to you an organism that fits within the taxonomic category of Homo sapiens sapiens based on their
Mhm.
genetic code and their biology, you would identify that as a human.
So the issue here, I hate to already
Well, hold on.
sort of
But
controversy.
just be. Is there like
Sure,
okay?
I would almost certainly do so.
If
Yeah.
I remove the legs of that human and the arms of that human and the head of that human and replace it all
Mhm.
with like robotic, I mean, maybe not the head, but the arms and the
Mhm.
legs and the torso and everything, and replace it all with like some kind of, tire tracks and like machines and everything, to the point where now this is like very different, I suppose, and operates differently than we normally understand a human to be, we would still categorize this as a human.
Yeah, but I would also probably invoke prototype theory and say that they're probably less of a human though, because it doesn't really fit. It doesn't map onto perfectly our prototypical idea of what
Less
a
of,
human is.
Hold on. I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
So if a veteran loses his legs in combat and
exact
is
definition, yeah.
replaced by
Mhm.
prosthetics, are they less than human?
No, I don't. Well, it depends if we're treating them if we're treating them in a substantially different way than we're treating all other humans. Then yes.
Veterans do get
But I
special
don't think we
status
do.
and get treated in a very different way than most humans. Yes.
No. This specific individual for losing his leg, and I don't think we really do. I don't think we're really treating
We
them.
treat
They
people
don't
with missing
operate in a
legs very
different
differently.
function. No. Like in terms of like their societal role that they exist in society, I think that they're largely okay. Hold
What
on.
does that mean?
Okay, I'm describing. Okay, let's look at someone like fucking General Grievous. Okay, I don't know if you're up on your Star Wars knowledge, but that's technically a human. Okay, he's got like a heart
No,
and
it's an alien. It's not a human.
I think it's a humanoid,
No.
but you might have caught me.
The Star Wars shit, I don't know. I just don't
Fine.
know.
Okay, I'll just if we live in a world where like essentially the human, all they have is the brain and their heart, and all of the other appendages are like fully robotic. I might say that this person is somewhat less human than a regular human because they operate in society's functions and roles, and maybe less than the prototypical example. Is that crazy? I don't.
No. So maybe.
But I would also wait. Hold on. Sorry. I would also immediately recognize that these are socially constructed definitions, and I would negotiate with the rest of the people around and say, "Is that person a human?" And if everyone's going, "Yeah, that's a human," then I go, "Okay, then it's a human."
I mean, all language is ultimately going to be socially constructed, but
yes,
I would still.
That is largely
right. But I think that unfortunately the social constructions on my side on this, in which there is a sufficient threshold for human, which does not lend itself to this sort of more of a human or less of a human. It's just, do you meet the threshold or not? Are you categorized as human or not? And so for me, it would be, are you are you a biological entity that has as part of the taxonomic definition of Homo sapiens sapiens? Do you have that genetic code? And if so, then I'd categorize you as a human.
Sure, but I think that what you're doing is you're reifying because we've never really met something that we would normally categorize as human beings that doesn't have like the human genetic code. So it's easy for you to. What do you mean?
We'd call them something else. We wouldn't call them humans because we have a definition for humans. Categories are by their definition exclusive.
No. But we could expand or restrict that definition. Like we could look at Homo neanderthals. Are those humans? Some might say yes, some might say no. And I would probably answer.
Well, there's a very specific reason why I've been saying Homo sapiens sapiens, because Homo sapiens sapiens is the taxonomic way to distinguish modern day humans from archaic humans like Neanderthal.
So totally. So here's the issue that I'm
and that's also Homo neanderthalis. That's not even Homo sapiens.
Sure. What I'm really going to be invoking, Wittgenstein has this idea of language games, he calls it, which is a terrible name for it, but I'll sort of explain what it is. But every time we use a word, it's contextual on the environment around it. For example, you're probably going to immediately concede this, but like, if I point to the example that he gives is, if I point to a slab, I'm a construction worker, and I say slab to refer to this piece, this wood, what I'm essentially saying is bring this slab over. But if I'm a father and I've got a kid nearby and I point to the piece of wood and I say slab, what I'm actually saying is this is what we call a slab. Sure. That like this is all contextually based off of the environment around us. Sure. What I would say is your definition of a human is a completely consistent language game within like a biology class.
That's every category.
But
can I just ask it? Hold on. I know you're trying not to be pretentious, so
yeah, go for
maybe just dumb it down a little bit.
Okay.
I understood you, Hunter. You don't need to dumb it down for me, just to be clear.
Okay.
I just have a real quick question.
Yeah.
No, I'm following you.
Hey, I changed my name, Wick. You dead name me.
What? I'm sorry. Hunter. Okay. I called you Staxians for years. Hunter.
I get it.
What is your definition of a human, and how does it differ from his?
So what I would say is that, largely speaking, we're not going to use a taxonomical definition for what a human is.
I'm not asking you what you're not going to use. I'm asking you what is your definition.
Sure. So right. So usually the way that categories and definitions function. I know. Just let me answer this. I know I'm gonna have to explain prototype theory. It's okay. Sorry, not everyone has read Rosh here. So essentially, whenever you categorize anything, I don't know. Whenever you categorize anything, you find essentially like a prototypical member. This is basically just like something that has all of the traits in a cluster of categories. We have a the archetype of the category, and then we basically say things like that, and it's sort of like it drifts away from the prototype.
Yeah, and then you have boundaries where it stops to be that, correct?
But they're blurry. They're necessarily blurry.
Sure, I understand. Okay. But I still don't got a definition for human.
I don't know. Can I just invoke Merriam-Webster? I would actually say, wait, hold on. Could I say this? I'll say Homo sapien sapien, but then I would also say that Homo neanderthals are human, or they're just decidedly less human than Homo sapien sapiens.
So this is where we disagree.
Because definitions aren't necessary and sufficient.
I'd call them hominids. I would not call them humans.
Because for example, I could invoke any definition of a chair, right? According to Merriam-Webster, and it would say something typically with a back, and it would say something with a back and 4 legs. I could point to plenty of chairs that don't have 4 legs, even though that is the definition of a chair. And I think that people very often misunderstand what specifically definitions are doing, where they're taking the entire blurriness, like there's the prototype in the middle, the archetype in the middle, and then it's sort of all of the tendrils outside of it. And a definition is really just trying to capture everything. What was that?
So Merriam-Webster has Homo sapiens as the definition.
Anything you could sit on. So a horse is a chair?
Could be, yeah.
So okay, so like it seems like you're doing the same thing I'm doing, which is
no.
I sit.
Yeah.
No. But I would say.
I want to back up for a second. I want to back up for a second.
Yeah,
you can use a horse as a chair. So when we consider chair,
but you would never refer to a horse as a chair.
Yeah, hold on. In most situations, you probably wouldn't.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Just like you said,
right?
But just like you said,
$1,000,000%.
Contextually, really, what like a chair or a seat is, it's more of a description of something that has a particular use value. And what is that use value? Something that I can sit on, right?
Likely speaking, yes.
Right.
What is the use value of women?
I would also say hold on. I would also say that that's not necessarily that's not necessarily the only reason why we categorize things. It's not just on a functional.
Not always, but in this case, I would say
it's also on aesthetic.
Right.
Sure.
You're
there are
correct.
also aesthetic distinctions or other distinctions. Famously, like there's a book called Women, Fire, and Dangerous Things by Lakoff, where he basically says there's a category in certain languages where they just group all of those 3 things together, and they couldn't really find like a use value for it. So sometimes there are like arbitrary distinctions, but like yes, broadly speaking, there's going to be a functional reason as to why we categorize.
So
things.
So yes, going back to answer, I guess, to Wick's question, I mean, what if I asked you what is a human, we're even more deep than what is a woman at this point. We'll get there. What is a human? You would say the Merriam-Webster definition, which is Homo sapien. I just looked it up. Wikipedia also has.
Yeah, but I would probably say that doesn't necessitate a human. It's just a definition of a human. And I think people really misunderstand what definitions are. I could say that a Homo Neanderthal is less of a human, but still a human. And invoke and say, actually.
You could say that. Yeah. Hold on. You could say that. And I could say
that's how all definitions function.
And I could say a cat is a human.
No, because because I would point to use cases. I would say society doesn't refer to it as a human.
I can talk to cats. I can use them for many of the same ways I use humans.
Hold on, stop. We're playing fucking games here, okay?
No. You're playing games. You're looking at a Neanderthal.
I'm not playing games.
You're looking at a Neanderthal, which is like very different.
I think most people would go, that's a human.
No, taxonomically they're not considered humans. The people in the field don't consider them humans. I agree.
Hold on.
I agree that a cat is going to be further away
within that particular language game. But if you ask the average society, hey, is Homo erectus, is Homo Neanderthal, are those humans? They would probably give you a little bit of like I guess, kinda. They would give
no. You would probably hear you'd probably hear not humans, but maybe human-like, hominid.
Hold on.
They share some features. Just like we're closer to cats than we are to a stick bug.
This doesn't matter because I am always going to.
I define it as mattering.
No. Okay, fine. Then I will concede. I will concede somewhat, and recognize. I hope you understand my metric. And if society is largely in the circumstances where we're like those are not humans. Human are just Homo sapien sapien. Then I go, okay, great, because it's a societally based use case. That is how language is trying.
So in the utmost of good faith, I'm going to actually like repeat what I hear your definition to be back to you in the best way I can, and you can help me out here. So your definition of human is a Homo sapien or anything close enough to a Homo sapien where if you were to go and ask somebody, the average person, there'd be some significant chance that they would say that's kind of a human. Is that your definition that you're working with?
No. My definition would be Homo sapien sapien, but I would say I don't think you know what a definition is. That oftentimes the way the definitions function, hold on, just hear me out. And this works for every object. Let's look up any object and we're going to find some examples to which the definition doesn't exactly match, but we would still likely call it somewhat of a chair through social convention. Like, pick an object. A chair?
Pick an object.
Chair definition.
Plasma.
Let's look up chair definition. Plasma. Well, you're choosing one without.
I'm giving you a test.
Sure, I would say, likely speaking, they're going to invoke a biological definition in which there are necessary and sufficient conditions within that language game.
What do you mean?
But that doesn't counter anything that I'm saying.
Hold on. So I'm sorry. Is my categorization of your definition correct? That you are saying Homo sapiens, but like if you have something that maybe shares some of the traits of like if here, would you say that
Okay, here's an example.
if aliens came down from Andromeda and they came down and they had the head and they had the suction cups on the fingers and they had the legs, bipedal, all that shit, and they're walking around and they were doing all the shit we do, right? Would you say, yeah, that's a human? Would you correct somebody if they said, is that a human over there, or would you say, no, that's not a human, that's an alien?
No, it would be a question that we would question and negotiate. Like that would be something that we would invoke. We would go, is that a human? Because that's certainly a blurry case.
I'm talking under current
convention. And if we all agree no, okay.
Because here's the problem. When I keep referring to this, like obviously with any kind of language, we're going to be referring to some kind of like intersubjective social convention, because this is the way words work.
Yes.
If all of us agreed that cat meant dog, then it would be true that cat means dog. Correct.
That's my point.
Just like it's true. This is true for any definition. But this is the whole. This is the whole. In my opinion, this is the whole point of like we're literally what we're doing right now is negotiating these definitions and making sure that that these definitions are actually exclusive. That these definitions actually categorize something. What is that something that we're looking at? For me, I actually have parameters that I've set forward. Very easily to understand parameters. If I explained it, if I put it in a statute, people would know for sure what I'm talking about. And some slimy lawyer like me couldn't argue my way into thinking that the alien was a human. Because this matters.
Hold on. I think that when it comes to and here's the issue. I do think here's the issue is that you have in some cases a law background, and in the specific language game that you play, when you are a lawyer or an attorney, you have to have very clear, succinct, precise, necessary, and sufficient definitions. But that is not colloquially outside how that functions.
Okay, but sure. But this is not what we're doing, engaging right now. This is not some colloquial exercise where somebody comes up to me at like some restaurant somewhere. We are currently discussing like what is the definition we're working with here. I can agree with you that like if somebody doesn't meet a strict definition, like for example, colloquially, I could see something and I could say, Lego, that's a frog, and the person who corrects me and says, actually, that's a toad. Like this kind of person, kind of an asshole, right? This person's kind of a dick. They know what I mean. But taxonomy. This is a toad. This person is correct, and there is a reason for this distinction, right? I apply the exact same thing when it comes to humans. I apply this exact same thing when it comes to man and woman.
But that reason has no functional distinction when it comes to outside of that biology class. If you're outside in the world, a frog just refers to anything that kind of looks like a frog and is in the water. That's all a frog really is. You're not using these like, oh, well, technically look at the heuristics when it comes like, what are the phylogenetic fiats that it uses? You're not doing that. You're going, well, it looks like a frog, so I'm calling it a frog.
Yeah. And also when I see a fish, I'm not saying that's a catfish. That's a shark. I'm like, maybe a shark if it's big enough. I'm going to know what that is.
I would make a distinction between catfish and sharks.
I just said maybe shark is a bad example, but like there's plenty of fish that I'm not going to know like the actual like what they actually are. And by the way, and if I was sufficiently uneducated, I might not know the difference between most mammals. It seems like your position here is that we have to like kowtow to the lowest common denominator.
No. We recognize that there are different definitions based off of different contexts. I would certainly say that the biological sex definition of female is certainly important in a biological sense. If you're a fucking doctor, you better fucking know what chromosomes your patient has. Okay.
Hold on. Before we move on, can I just get this? Like, I'm gonna go step by step. I'm gonna try to get all these concessions. So you would agree?
Okay, I have a meta question after, but go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Well, medically, then, Hunter, would you concede that medically, woman and man, the distinction here matters tremendously, and that my definition is most accurate medically?
Your definition, when we say medically, are we because
if you pull out the doctor form, if you go to the hospital and you look at the form and there's like, are you a man or a woman? Are you going to be like, well, I mean, ultimately this is all intersubjective, or are you going to circle, I am a man, I know what that is?
No, but what you should say is that this is why the sex gender distinction matters so much. Hey, I'm a male. If I have abdominal pain, you better know that I don't have a uterus in there. But also, I would like you to refer to me as a woman when you speak to me intersubjectively. and we play these two language games simultaneously. So you should
again. I'm just there's I'm trying to. There's a social convention category that we're going to go into, but
no. But that social convention also matters at the doctor. So I don't know if you're going to trip me up on that. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying. I'm not.
Cool.
I understand.
Then yes.
Okay.
Great.
Yes.
Then yes, you should write down male.
Sure.
If you are a trans woman, you should write down male.
Okay.
You should say I don't have a uterus, by the way.
I hear you.
So you know.
And then we can go and then we can talk about social convention, but Wick had a question.
Right, which still
still can be present in a medical context. Yeah.
Yes.
So
yes.
My question goes to social. I'm just I'm just curious. And this is for both of you. What are we trying to decide here tonight? I know what the prompt is, but it seems to be that you guys have some at least connection on the basics. So I guess what's the utility of the question? Like, what are we trying to do?
That's a great question, and I think if you were taking notes, you would recognize that is number 11. So thank you.
I don't have 12 fucking points. Just answer my question.
No. It's a good question.
What was the definition of that thing that you said you were going to try to not be? What was that? I don't.
Pretentious.
What is that? What's the meaning of that?
What's the meaning? No. See, you're doing this thing where I'm saying that definitions exist in blurry categories, and you're saying so definitions aren't even real at all. They're actually they're fully arbitrary. You could just sort of decide.
No, hold on. I agree that they can be blurry, but I'm saying that they don't negate the category. I feel as though this is
they don't negate the category.
They don't negate the category, and this is
I don't know what that means.
Well, I'm going to expound on that. No, you're good. I'm going to expound on that and also sort of answer Wick's question because obviously, all right, going back to how things are contextual, obviously this isn't just and never was, and Matt Walsh didn't intend it to be some kind of silly little semantics exercise. This has real.
As much as I love semantics exercises,
yes, of course, you're going to get a doctorate in it. And I currently have one.
Wow.
The purpose
That's
of
a
this,
lie. It's just semantics exercises.
No, I throw that in there. Yeah. The reason why we're having this discussion is obviously because this has implications. I think it has medical implications. I think it has, in much larger part, the thing that people I think really care about is going to be social convention ramifications that we're going to get into. But I also think there's this other convention here that actually is important. It's kind of been what we're talking about now to some extent, which is that although I just called it sort of a silly semantic game, I do think that maintaining some coherence and preventing the slide into just complete postmodernism and maintaining a level of linguistic coherence actually is good for a society. I think it is important for when we have definitions, for those definitions to mean something, actually be describing something, as opposed to being entirely circular to how people can then kind of in an Orwellian newspeak start to redefine things in ways that are very particularly politically advantageous for them. That's not good.
Sure. I'll concede something immediately. This is the answer to question 6.
No one's following the question.
Is biological sex a coherent definition? Yes, it is. It for sure is. There is a coherence to it for sure. I do reject, firstly, that is how people use that category of woman. They're not checking biological sex. They're using recognizable heuristics. So it's sort of it is a little bit non-functional.
Oh, wait. Can I ask you a question on that very specific question? I disagree with that. I think that most people are identifying because there's such a strong correlation between phenotype and genetic code. But I think that for most Americans, at least, if they were to meet somebody who passed, right, who came across as the sex that they thought they were, but then later they found out, oh, this person has the genetics of the other sex, I think that the word they'd probably come to mind is this person's actually a man. Or this person's actually a woman. That's what the vast majority of people will actually think. So I think that really the definition they're working with is the biological, is the taxonomic. But when it comes to like visual identification, just like with any other taxonomic definition, like with frog or toad or bird or anything like this, they're also identify. Like if, for example, if a biologist went to somebody with a fish and said, actually, this is not a fish, this is a mammal. right? People are like, oh shit, I didn't know that. That's actually a mammal now. Look at that. I'm going to go forward and I'm going to call this a mammal.
Yeah, there's a huge issue here, which is I could send you this brilliant article where this guy imagines going to this like Babylonian king, and he goes, "Hey, you keep saying that whales are part of like you keep saying that whales are fish, and they're not fish. They're actually mammals, right?" And the Babylonian king, he's like, "I don't even know what the fuck phylogenetics are. Like, I call them whales because they're in the fucking ocean. I call animals animals because they're on the land." And they go, "No, no, no, look, the phylogenetics matter." And they map this whole thing out for them. And the king basically listens and goes, "Listen, I'm sure that that's useful from wherever the fuck you are, but here we have a kingdom, or sorry, we have people who are over the sea and people over the land. So it's actually important that we call whales fish so that we make sure that these people are over that specific person. Like, there is a functional basis off of this. And when we say things are
what is over what?
Like certain statutes are regard fish in the creature.
Yeah,
like fish in the ocean.
Right, but you don't have to negate the like you can simply say, like, you can take a sort of like a revisionist approach here and be fine. You can say, when we came up with this statute, we were referring to these sort of mammals as well, and maybe hopefully you would clarify that maybe in some any kind of future legislation, but you wouldn't necessarily have to. You would say at the time of writing, this is what they were referring to. Language changes or whatever, that's what we're going to refer to it as. But like, it would be better if they started referring to the whales as mammals for a number of reasons, because it's important. I think that, you know, it's very possible that down the road it's important to distinguish the fish from mammals.
Wait, can I pause you real quick? Do you recognize it's not an ontological category, it's not this, we're not speaking ontologically. We're not speaking whether or not actually whales are fish. We're saying, would it be better to categorize them as fish? Because actually we could do either. But we have to be looking at the function of these categories to determine what's best for society.
Right. The difficulty, again, that I keep running into is that you're correct that this, because language is an intersubjective exercise, you could do this for any kind of taxonomic definition. In fact, it could be irrelevant to the difference between frogs and toads, or even maybe even more or less complex. You could say it's irrelevant to distinguish between dogs and cats. You could say, well, look, for our purposes, I mean, it's a furry thing. It's got 4 legs. That's just a cat.
Yeah.
Like, we're looking at cat. Oh, coyote comes up. That's a cat too. You could have a very simplistic language. In fact, this is the case in some African languages.
Or it could be more complicated, but in different ways.
Yeah, in certain African languages, for example, they have 3 different words they have for color, and they just sort of throw a word out for, like, well, that's, you know, in ancient Greek writings, for example, they would describe the ocean as wine colored because wine was used to refer to both purple and blue. You're right. You can have like simplistic kind of like generalizations here. I don't think that is better than being more specific if you can be more specific, and I especially don't think it's better if it goes against what the actual utility value is, which I think
I fully agree with you.
Which I think biology, as I tried to describe before, is I think how most people actually mean it. Like, I think for the vast majority of Americans, if you were to describe, oh, by the way, that's actually a man, that's going to affect their decision making as it regards that person. Would you agree?
Yes. Wait, hold on. Yes, but there's a little bit of a double-edged sword there. You recognize that the way that they're treating this person in society would change because gender exists in this social role in society.
There are social constructions that we have around all sorts of biological quirks that people have. Sure.
Okay. Now here's my question. Do you think that certain females might be able to occupy that role of man?
Tomboys.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Are tomboys?
I think that
are tomboys men?
They are probably okay. I'm going to be really clear.
There are more men than women.
Really clear. No, I might not say that, but I might say that they are less of a woman than a prototypical woman. Yeah. Now, what I really mean by that is they are treated as less of a woman in that societal role. Just to be super clear here. I am not saying that, like, on an ontological level, but I don't even know if I believe in, like, an ontological identity or reality.
Sure.
So I am just looking at a social reality. And yes, to some extent, those tomboys are less of a woman.
So how would they
be? I wouldn't use that construction.
So in order to be more of a woman, they would need to, like, wear more makeup, have longer hair.
Just to back up Hunter for a moment.
Yeah.
You would understand this if we were talking about men, right? You would understand that some men, even though they're biologically male, in different societies are seen as less than other men or more
Yes.
manly than other men,
Yes.
right? Based on how they conduct themselves and a whole lot of role things that have nothing at all to do with biology, right?
Yes.
We understand that the concept of what a man is changes over time from a
Yes.
societal level. We're not
To
talking
some
about
degree.
male or female here. We're talking about men,
I
right?
would say that probably.
Can I just finish?
Yeah.
Right?
Sorry. Go ahead.
A man, what was considered a man, like a man's man, a manly man, more man than other men in Athens, was substantively different than what Spartans considered to be
Certainly.
a manly man,
Culturally
right?
different, yeah.
And this kind of speaks to his point, right? If a
This speaks to
tomboys
Lactoid's
are
point?
considered less
No, he
women
thinks it
than
goes to
most
your
women
point.
are
Oh.
because of how they occupy the social role.
Right. So when we refer to people as manly, what we're generally talking about is this person very much fit within the phenotypes that are typical of their or behavior that is typical of what they are. So like a car, I would say, is like very car-ish if it behaves in the way a car
A real man
is,
opens the
perhaps.
door for
Right,
a
a
woman.
real man opens the door, but of
That has
course,
nothing to do with
sure,
biology.
but of course, though, Wick, if I didn't open the door for a woman, you wouldn't thus say, well, Lactoid, you are a woman now.
No, but
I
you
would
would
say that
certainly
you're
be
less of a
less of a
man, or
man.
if I
Right,
was
but by
following
saying that,
or
what you're really saying is, I think you're less masculine. I think that you're not abiding by the social.
Yes.
You're saying that you're not abiding by the social conventions. But
But what else is a social
but
category other
but
than
no, because I'm saying it's a biological category.
no?
Because
Sure.
because if Wick
sure.
found out that like I had XX
I have a
chromosomes, or if I found out that Wick had XX chromosomes, and that everything here has just been an act, what I would say is Wick has been a woman this
Been an
whole
act.
time
would that
that was
make our
deceiving
dick
us.
pics we send each other less gay?
It would be very much more impressive, because I would say, how the
Oh,
fuck did you do
okay.
that? I mean, that surgery was very well done. But still,
You'd be surprised.
but regardless,
Okay.
like or Hunter,
Lactoid, I have a
I would say Hunter, you were a woman, because here's the problem. Here's the problem with, I think, the definition that you're presenting. It
Yeah.
would mean that you can't pretend to be a woman. You can only be a woman. So if I go
Yes.
to a theater, for example, and I portray a woman very convincingly, I have the wig on, I got the makeup on, and I'm convincing the audience I'm a woman as part of the act. Am I pretending to be a woman, or am
Hold on,
I just a woman in that moment of time?
I genuine question, okay? Because
Mhm.
I might be able to bite some bullets that might make me look crazy. If you answer this in a very specific way, does the audience know that that person is a male?
The audience doesn't know.
Okay, the audience doesn't know. Then I would say within that language game, yes, you are fulfilling that role of a woman.
And that's
You're
a
being
woman up
treated
there.
as a woman.
Despite the fact that it's Bubba who
But
identifies as a man,
I would say the
as
moment
a wife at home.
I would say the moment that you step outside of that role, the moment you take off
I'm
that
not.
dress,
Well,
the
I'm not
moment
talking about
you
that
go
yet.
home.
I know. I'm not talking about that yet. I'm really
I
trying to nail.
understand, but that's
Yeah. Well, hold on. I'm trying to nail it.
but
I'm appealing to that common sense, the social convention that
no,
we're talking about earlier.
sure.
So when we're talking about some guy named Bubba, who he shoots guns and rides
Is this a reference
motorcycles,
to something?
big fat dick. I mean, just massively masculine dude in every which way.
You keep saying, but he convinces a whole audience.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, he opens the door
Okay.
for his wife every time, but
Yes.
due to the magic of
The magic. Stop.
of makeup, due to the magic of, in fact, holographic AI fucking lighting imaging, like it transforms him and it makes him look like the most beautiful, convincing woman. I would say this person is acting as a woman. I would say this person is playing a woman. This person
would
is
say that-
behaving. This person is trying to convince an audience that they are this thing that they're not. You would say, no. They are a woman during the performance. And then the moment they step off, the moment they step,
No.
I have a whole list of follow-up questions.
No.
Before you say-
Let me clarify.
Let me finish before you clarify. You would say, and you can correct this, you would say the moment they step off the stage and pull off the wig and the holograph stops and they see Bubba, now it's a man.
Okay. So largely speaking, so I'm actually going to say no. I'm going to say no, and for a few
Well, you
different
said yes
reasons.
before.
I know, but it's kind of it's definitely the blurry boundary. Okay.
Just to be
kinda hit
clear,
the
what are
blurry
you
boundary.
saying no to now?
That person's not a woman. Now, I would say largely speaking, because you have to confer to all members of the society. This person, sorry, let's say I'm
To
Bubba.
all members?
I don't. To a sufficient number.
Sufficient number. The audience compared to who?
Compared to the government doesn't treat this person as a man. To his wife doesn't treat him as a man. And those realities still exist while he's on stage.
So if his audience is sufficiently large enough, then he's a woman.
If his audience is the entire world, then yes, of
Yeah,
course.
he's
If
a
everyone is
superstar.
convinced, hold on, and you agree with this.
No, I
Here's
don't.
what's so weird. No, because we've had this conversation, and this is why I had the conversation, because I felt like you were easily movable because you conceded this when it came to race, and I will point to race as a number of different examples. We talked about Rachel Dolezal, right?
Mhm.
Rachel Dolezal, in a sense, for the audience, she was a white woman who essentially pretended to be. She's spiritually black. Yeah.
Mhm.
We essentially recognized that in 20 years ago, or whenever the fuck she was the head of the NAACP, or a certain chapter, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like 10 years ago, she was black, but now we consider her to never have been black. But she was decidedly black because everyone treated her as black.
No, hold on.
Is that not what we said? Because I believe that is 100%
I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to do a couple things here. I'm going to address the prior argument you made.
Wait.
I will talk about Rachel Dolezal.
Question?
Can I add a third question? You give me a second to write down the first two then.
That's fine.
Do that. So,
are we counting or not counting domestic women on women violence?
All right, third one. Go ahead. Brutal. The fuck? Go ahead.
Yeah, that was crazy. Hold on, now I got distracted. Do you think? Wait, sorry. There's going to be a little primer to this. You think that we should establish necessary and sufficient conditions for women for the betterment of society? Yes. Just yes or no, real quick. Don't write that question down.
I'm writing it down.
Okay.
Establish necessary and sufficient conditions for the betterment of society.
Yes. Yeah. Should we do that for? We should. Okay. Should we do that for Black people? Should we do that for the ethnicity of Black?
I don't know. I think race is much less solidified than, in some ways, I think transracialism is more legitimate than transgenderism because I think it's actually based on less of a actual biological category.
Sure.
But when it comes to transracialism, the reason why I use the Rachel Dolezal example is because in some respects, I almost sort of reject like race essentialism tremendously. Like I think that people who identify strongly with their race tend to be the worst people.
Sure. Yeah. Would you? So do you? But
I have this written down though. I have the Rachel Dolezal question written down. Let me.
Yeah. We can get into that.
Sure. So sufficient audience. You said that. You said for Bubba's case, the whole world audience is required. I don't think that's actually required. The government might recognize him as a man. But I don't think that when we're referring to the government, we're obviously not referring to all the people in the government. Congress doesn't know Bubba's name. All the government employees don't know his name. Really what it is like some bureaucrat at the Social Security office mailed a card out one time and has some files on this. And yeah, you're going to have like his wife and his circle of friends, and you're going to have the people that knew him. And yeah, this represents a somewhat large community. But I think that if Bubba is any kind of famous, it's pretty easy, I think, for him to exceed an audience and have an audience much larger than the group of people that know him as a man. And during that performance, that much larger audience is going to see him as a woman.
And if that audience genuinely thinks that Bubba is a woman, yes?
The audience because Bubba's playing such a good role as a woman, they believe him to be a woman.
I would say that person probably still doesn't fit within the norms of the community of like what specifically a woman is.
They're all convinced he's a woman.
Then wait, hold on.
What do you mean the norms? They're fully convinced that he's fulfilling all the norms of a woman. They're looking at him and they're convinced.
When he goes to the red carpet, okay, and he's dressed as a woman and everyone fully believes that he's a woman, he is to some degree much more so a woman. Yes.
No. Is he a woman? He's not on the red carpet yet. He's doing the presentation. He's convinced the audience that he's a woman.
Yes.
Is he a woman?
He is certainly much more so of a woman. Yes.
Is he a woman in that moment?
I reject the framing. I reject the framing.
Well, this is the third time now. Before you said yes, then you said no. Now you say he's more of. Now we're on the third answer here of.
Well, wait, hold
on. Somewhere on there.
Okay.
Because, and by the way, the reason why I'm hammering you on this is because I have like 4 questions based on this. Because now I'm gonna.
No. And it's a fair question.
Yeah.
It is a fair question, but I would also immediately pivot to this blurriness and this like difficulty in establishing like a correct answer is difficult in all blurry categories. Every single time you're going to go like, man, I don't really know. Actually, maybe we got to like ask around. Like, what do you guys think? Like, I don't really know. Like if I like, for example, we could look to Black people and go, we could just look to him.
Wait, no.
and go,
I've got a good example here. Well, I actually
Yeah.
didn't know the actor Robert Downey Jr. Before the movie.
Oh,
Tropic
you knew
Thunder.
him from? Sure.
I genuinely, the first time I ever saw him was I walked in and there
Okay.
was like in the movie theaters when they have those like pop-up
I understand.
cardboard, of Robert Downey Jr. as a black man. I just believed he was a black man. If there's enough people like me, if this was like his debut, I know he's a famous actor before, but if this was his debut, was he black?
He is okay. And again, this is a blurry, we are right in the middle of the blurry boundary. Like you can imagine, there's the prototype, there's all of the gradients, and there's like a boundary that exists where like outside of it, you certainly aren't, and inside you definitely are. This is the blurriness you're describing. I'm going to have a difficult time answering that question. I would say
society. If society decides you are something, you are.
That's what I'm saying. Right? Yes, which is why I'm going to have to pull people around the. And
I have when it comes to race.
Yes.
Society decides Hassan is white. He's white.
Then he's white. And I would say that's why.
Great.
That's why I was going to invoke.
Is black. Then you can do everything a black person can.
Now wait. Now hold on. Now answer the question. Answer the question about now if Robert Downey Jr. was dressed as a woman, convincingly enough that society saw Robert Downey Jr. as a woman. Is Robert Downey Jr. a woman?
If everyone treats him like a woman,
I want to hear. Okay, if everyone treats him like a woman, or no, if enough people, it can't be everybody. Because all you would need then is in your mind one transphobe, and now. So what would you say, Wick?
So it has to reach the threshold.
So there's some threshold.
I don't necessarily share this definition, right? I am simply steel manning.
No, that's fine. But what I'm not asking you to like present to me, Wick, because you're not necessarily.
I didn't prepare for this.
I understand. But I'm just asking you right now.
My real answer here is yes. If enough people recognize you, if enough of society recognizes you as a thing, then you are de facto that thing. That's just how countries are. Like, what is a nation?
Yes, exactly.
It's whatever enough of the world recognizes as a nation, right?
Sure. And there's going to be some blurriness. We're going to go like, what about Taiwan? That's a little difficult.
And you would put this in the movie context as well.
Definition. What does society treat you as? What is it that you are allowed to do and how you are allowed to act? And that is entirely dependent on society. That's why I get frustrated when a lot of people say, well, I'm an X. I'm like, well, you can call yourself a Democrat or you can call yourself a Republican all day, but if no one else agrees with you, you're not actually that.
Yeah, there's a really good example.
So Connor's a liberal.
No, wait, hold on. I'll say this.
Most people would not.
I would say, wait, hold on. No,
I want to ask Wick a question. I want to ask Wick a question based on what he just said, because he just said that if the audience question, where if an actor, Bubba or Robert Downey Jr. or whoever, goes in front of a sufficiently large audience of people playing a woman,
it has to be a society. It's not an audience thing. It has to be society. So it can't just be in one single setting. It has to be over the course of how they live their day-to-day lives. It can't just like when you say audience, I think that someone is on stage, right? And when you are on stage, it is understood you are presenting, right? You are being observed, and that there's just different contexts and rules that might apply there. But when we talk about people and how they act on their day-to-day, how they are treated by society as a whole, that's a different thing.
I think it's different in terms of the it's only different in terms of scale. It's only different in terms of like time. I think that but if we're taking a snapshot of like, okay, we have somebody, because when I see people out in the wild, I'm usually not seeing them consistently. I'm usually seeing them for a very short period of time and then potentially never seeing them again. And so when you have somebody presenting to an audience, they are, let's say it's a play, and they're up there and they're dressed as a woman and they're very convincing as a woman, and they're presenting this way to a woman. This person is presenting to a large group of people really for probably longer than your average person is presenting to people within society on any given period of time.
No. The flaw in this analogy is that while you might only observe them for a short amount of time, a snapshot, 6 seconds as you pass them on the street, they are still existing in society all the time, constantly, right? Much, much longer than you personally, as an individual, are observing them, right? So we're talking about society as a whole, which is much different than your individual amount of time you might perceive them. And I acknowledge that some people can be more involved in society and less involved in society. But you understand the point that I'm trying to make here?
Sort of. I just think there's like a whole bunch of issues. I think there's pit holes with some of the things you're saying, but I understand the point you're making. The point you're making is one play isn't enough, like to categorize this person as a woman. Even if they have the whole audience fooled, you would still say, oh, that
Because they'll
person's
take off their wig at
yeah,
the
yeah.
end
You
of
would
the
say that
show.
person's pretending to be a woman. But then, to kind of put your position maybe a little bit uncharitably, or I guess the way I would argue against it is if you pretend to be a woman for a long enough period of time around
Mhm.
enough people, then at some
Yes.
point it stops becoming pretending,
Yes.
and then at some
fake
point it
it
crosses
till you
over
make
into
it.
you're that actual thing.
Yeah, fake it till
Yeah.
you make it is a
Fake it
is
till you
a
make it.
thing,
So,
right?
Yeah.
and would you use this for any other category, like let's say a different species? Like if I was a very convincing fursuit, if I wore it enough, would I eventually become a dog?
And you would
Only
wait.
society recognized
They
that
did.
you as an actual dog.
But yeah, society began treating me as a dog
Yes,
because
then you would be a dog.
You're a
And
fucking wait.
all
Hold on. You're a pet in
like, for
someone's
example,
house.
if we were in the ancient Babylonian era, and I took my armies and I came into your country and I raped and I pillaged my way through, and then I captured you, the ruler of the enemy country, and then I gouged out your eyes, I cut out your vocal cords, I put you on a collar, I had a dog bowl for you to eat, I commanded everyone to see you as a dog and trained you to start acting like a dog, you would in essence be my dog.
Sure, and no,
I will also
I would not
say
be your dog because that has different like connotations here. I would be a dog.
My dog as well.
Yeah, but
in this case.
maybe as well, but I'd be a dog. And you would
Yes.
agree that this definition here is entirely incompatible with self-identification.
No, because you aren't deciding whether or not you are a dog. You
Right.
probably do not want to be this dog.
Well, no,
You
that's
probably
hold on,
say,
that's exactly what I
am
just
a
said.
man, and you would
Right.
scream it out
Wait,
and
no,
identify
you
yourself.
must have misheard me. You must have misheard me. I said
Oh.
this position is entirely incompatible with
incompatible.
self-identification.
Sure. Yeah,
Right.
no, I'm not.
yeah,
a
and
self-identified
I largely reject self-identification as well.
So if
I
a trans
will say
person
that
is not passing enough, they're not really a woman.
they are certainly less of a woman. Yes,
But they're not
I
a
would
woman
immediately
yet.
bite that bullet. It depends, but yeah, sure.
Well, the whole debate we're having specifically over trans is, are they women? And the whole argument is people trying to convince society whether or not they are.
Mhm.
And that's the point of the argument. When I ask that utility question, that's what this is.
Well,
It is an argument that
the vast
society
majority
is
of people
currently
don't see them
having
as real women.
and
Right?
engaged in, right?
I don't know if that's true. We would have to be looking at specific trans people. Hunter Schafer, I think that she is 100%. She's largely considered to be a woman.
No, I know. I think that most Americans, given how public she is,
Really?
about the fact that, hold on, given how public Hunter Schafer is about their biology, I think that information's out there, and I think that if you present that information, most Americans are going to say that's not a woman. That's they're most blue collar, your average run-of-the-mill person. That's really a man. That's
Hold
really
on, but
a man.
unless and until they were presented with that information,
it's out there. It's out there. The information's out there just as much as their faces. In fact, I know less about Hunter. I know less about Hunter Schafer's face than I know about the fact that they're a trans person.
But we're talking about. We're not just talking about famous trans people. We're talking about people you would never know.
No,
right?
I agree. Sure, but this is where I think. Right, and this is where I think I disagree with both of you. Going back to the definition that was presented before, because you guys agree that because there's really two definitions that most of the trans argument goes down. The first one is self ID, and the other one is societal performance. The self ID, I think that is being rejected here, where if you're not sufficiently societally performing, you're not really that thing. So somebody who doesn't, conform to the phenotypes or conform to the behaviors that we typically associate with women, they're not really a woman. They're just saying they are.
I might quibble on that word, but
I'm
right. Well,
I don't like
well, hold on, but they're not seen as a woman, therefore they're not a woman under the definition that you guys have provided.
Yeah. So I see it as an interaction between two different people. It's not just that the first person performs; it's the second person also accepts it.
So, let me ask you this.
Sure, but they don't accept it if there's no kind of performance.
But let me ask you
No,
this.
I know. That's why I'm saying it's both.
During,
of course,
the 1858, 57 in America, would you have considered, right, the way that they were treated? Like, black people were not considered by society to be people, right? This is the Hunter.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll
But since society did not see them as people, right? I'm flipping the script here. I'm arguing.
Yeah. No, go for it.
They were still people, were they not? They were still human, even though society at the time in the South did not consider them human.
I'm gonna steel man you because I do think. Shut the fuck up. I'm gonna steel man you because I do think actually, they were considered people and human. They just didn't necessarily have the rights. If you asked who the people are, they're probably going to point to the black people too. So, but I will steel man you and envision a world in which black people are not considered human.
Sure.
And here's the thing. It's going to be extremely difficult to escape my subjectivity, escape my 21st.
Just to clarify, that was the goal of many people at the time, slave owners. They wanted to
dehumanization,
and that's why they used phrenology and all these things because they wanted to draw a big distinction between humans and black people.
I do think there's there were both humans, but one is a lesser human. But I don't want to quibble. I want to steal.
No, that's what I'm saying. They were trying to draw the distinction and make them.
They put them in a lesser category, is what Wick is saying. They put them in this category as lesser. Yeah. So you would agree that they were lesser at that time?
Yeah. Well, sorry. They were lesser. I think
biologically, because they put them in this biological category that they defined as lesser.
I would not say biologically they were lesser, but socially, of course, they were. And if you
were they actually lesser or were they treated lesser?
There is no distinction between actual and treated. That is my position. That is my ontological position. Is like a constructivist position.
So rights are given; they're not there.
Yeah. Sure.
So if society we decide to not give somebody rights, it's not like we can violate their rights then.
I would probably say in my subjective experience, which is I'm an American who grew up I was born in 1995. Mm-hmm. I'm probably going to I will invoke my morals and norms onto that society and say, well, of course of course black people are human. But I am doing so from my subjectivity. A way to frame this, a way to describe this, and I'm not trying to play rhetorical games, is that were black people humans? No. But now they always have been. Does that make sense? There's a sort of
and it's
there's a perspective of linguistic.
He didn't bite that bullet.
They weren't, but they always have been. That's so I know what you're doing. That's interesting or whatever, but it's blatantly contradictory. No,
it's not because I recognize
it is. They
through
weren't,
my
but
subjective lens, which is all that we have.
No,
we can essentially.
But it's not just your subjective lens, because this whole time you've been appealing to the subjective lens of society. You're not just saying yes. You're not just saying
sorry. Yes, of course, but society recognizes black people as human.
Yeah, okay.
The current society that I grew up in,
right. But yes, they recognize them as the current people the current people that exist. They do, but the society then, you would agree that the society then did not recognize black people as being equal. They didn't recognize them as occupying this biological. They consider them the sons of Ham. They didn't put them in the same category, right?
I understand. Yes.
And so hold on. Wait. Let me follow up. So you would say yes then, that because societally they define them as being within this lesser category, then you would say that black people were indeed in this lesser category.
Yes, but now they never have been. Because through my own subjective personal lens, which I have and I cannot escape, I live in the 21st century. I was born in 1995. I was born in America. Wow. Black people are as equal as me. I would refer to them as human. And I would say yes, even in the 1700s.
Why does the current society have greater authority than the prior society?
No, it's not greater authority. It's my authority, and I'm speaking as me.
Why? You have authority over the will of society?
I have no authority. No, I have no authority. I'm speaking
as myself. The answer to that question, Blacktoid, the answer to that question is because we exist and they don't.
No, I understand that we exist, but we can't speak for all society. Like in the same way that in the same way that
this current society exists, but
I understand, but I'm not them.
I don't even understand what you're saying.
Hold on, why we have more authority? Hold on. You asked a question why we have more authority than they do.
No, you're missing the point.
Was that not your question?
Stop. There is a society that exists with it currently. Do you agree? Let's just go very point by point, just so we won't get lost. There is a society that currently exists. I am not the society. when you're
No,
talking
but we're representing portions of the society for
some very small portion, but all the society
course.
that's not us is not us by definition.
I
Yeah.
understand.
Right. What is the legitimacy that comes from that society as compared to the society from the 1800s?
There is no authority.
Well,
Okay.
I think that
society
authority
that
is a poor
exists-
framing.
Right. So
my answer is the same. That society exists. They're able to act. The old society does not exist. It is unable to act.
I think
I understand, but
that's
yeah.
I'm
maybe you understand where I'm going with this.
Can I just clarify my position?
The tyranny of the
My
hold on,
position.
the tyranny of the present is what I'm saying.
Before you
People who
clarify
show up
your
make
position,
rules, and the people who exist make up
Yeah.
society, and
Yeah.
that society is better, or
Mhm.
not better, I should say. That society has more power and more authority than any society that's existed before it. No matter whether that society in the past was great or terrible, those societies are dead, and ours is alive.
Hunter, let me clarify my position here, because then it might
Yeah.
explain where I'm going with this point.
Yeah.
Regardless of the beliefs, if all of society except for me believed that black people weren't human beings, I would disagree with them, and I would reject. I just reject with their beliefs on this. That society has no authority on my beliefs. That has no authority on my definitions of things.
Okay.
This is also the case when it comes to.
Wait, hold on. Do I have to?
Well, what I mean
is
by
that a question? Because I might not agree.
It's not a question. It's a statement. So before, when you said that rights are given, not there, I would say that human beings have rights, and I think that modern day society can choose to recognize them. And if they do, then I think they're correct. If they don't, then I think they're incorrect. And I think that human beings always had those rights. And I think prior societies didn't recognize them, and I think that they were wrong. You could have an example where a dead society was more correct than a living society.
Of course.
Thank you.
That's why I reject Wick's framing, which is that like present tense, whatever the successful society is, the one that is more correct. The present, really what I would say is
hold on.
you can't escape.
It's not more correct. It's the one that's able to have the authority.
Okay, sure. Has authority.
I'm referring to moral authority. I should have been clear. I know authority,
I would say
in terms of guns, obviously, but I'm talking about in terms of like moral authority over our understanding.
Moral authority is a
But
different
my question is, how can you anchor your how could you anchor these positions into anything other than the subjective experience that we're experiencing through society's lens? Like, are you just discovering it through first principles by determining that all humans are created equal? Is that
fundamentally it's going to all go back to presuppositions and axioms? Yeah.
Right. Yes. Correct. Because those axioms are arbitrarily determined. I can choose.
Yeah, but the goal is to minimize them. You can, but the goal is to minimize the amount of axioms you have. You can choose to reject them.
What are you talking about? The goal is to minimize axioms. Where are you getting that from?
Occam's razor. The goal is to try to minimize the amount of suppositions that you're using with any kind of position.
Okay, great. Here's a new axiom that I
reject Occam's razor.
No. I'm not going to. Here's my axiom. Because you probably have 2 or 3 axioms that you build all of your suppositions from. I just have
one main one.
All people should die. Okay, prove I'm wrong.
Oh, I can't. If it's an axiom, I can't prove that you're wrong.
Okay, isn't that my point? That you actually can't determine these. You actually they all come from.
Sure. What here? Let me explain. If you have the axiom of all people should die, because I think all this is fundamentally like going to be all axioms are presuppositions. At that point, there's no use in having a conversation with you anymore. Because I can't move
I agree
you.
1,000,000%.
Yeah, I can't move you.
I'm unnegotiable.
It's entirely unnegotiable. I just have to defeat you at this point in any kind of political battleground that there is. Yeah,
I fully agree. But there is no correct versus incorrect. You are speaking from your position, which is people should be treated equal. And I'm speaking from my position, which is all people should die. And there is no authority to assert which one is correct.
But I'm assuming that we do share some presuppositions.
Because we live in our...
One of the presuppositions, a couple of the presuppositions that I think we agree on is that we generally, hopefully agree, that language should be concise, that language should be clear, that language should... not be so malleable as to be easily manipulated by political actors. That we should that language should reflect like important societal functions, and that it should be consistent.
Here's my issue.
And not circular.
No,
which I guess yours isn't.
No, I reject all of that.
It should be complicated and vague.
Hold on.
Opaque.
No, I don't. No, stop. Stop fucking straw manning me. Listen to me, okay? I think you said concise and consistent. Consistency is I think that what you're doing is you're asserting that my definition is not consistent because it has blurry boundaries. And I fully reject that. I would point to every other thing that we label. Okay. Let's look at chairs. For example, we did this before. I looked up a definition and it said a seat for one person.
It's blurrier
okay?
than mine, you would agree.
Like
my definition is less blurry than yours.
So your mom would not be a chair since more than
I would say your issue is that it doesn't map onto the way that people use language as much as mine does.
No, I think it does.
Yeah. No, but I would say that if you see Hunter Schafer, you are going to struggle to call that person a him.
This is where the whole discussion went down. Where I think that if you trick people, and this is what I meant to say before, I think that
but you could have all of that information.
If you could say if you're in a performance, if you're in a performance, whether it be on a stage or whether it be throughout the day or whatever, if I think that you can mask something. And it can be masked. It can be a disguise. Okay. Perfect example of this. Let me ask you this very directly. Me myself, growing up, I was androgynous as a child for like a couple years. Very hard to tell. I was mistaken as a girl constantly, probably by most people. Was I a girl? And then did I stop being a girl at some point? And if so, when and why?
I'm going to invoke
the gradients
of language. I'm going to invoke the gradients of language. And I would say, first off, everyone who knew you treated you as a man, right? Or a boy. Everyone who knew you,
everybody who knew me after I corrected them, after I said, well, no, actually,
no.
I might present this
mom
way,
and teacher
but I'm not.
and peer students.
How old were you when you were a girl?
What are you talking about? Of course,
I guess I was a girl between the fourth grade and like.
Do you see what he just did there?
7th grade, I would say I
was a girl.
That's when I was a girl, according to Hunter over here. I was a girl between 4th grade and 7th grade.
There is a blurriness here. There's a blurriness here. I would say obviously your parents probably treated you. Is it fair to say your parents treated you as a boy?
They did.
And your teachers? All of the students who knew, all of your friends?
I told them, yes.
Oh my God, yes, sure. But if you take a snapshot
strangers
of you in your life, I understand. I fucking get it. Thanks. I do understand this. It's actually not that weird to me.
Well, it's difficult that you understand this, yet you keep using Hunter Schafer as an example. Where, yes, the people who know Hunter Schafer are probably knowing this person's biology and are probably going to treat this person differently than they would a woman, but a stranger might not if they get tricked. So me, myself, when I was androgynous, sure, I might have tricked strangers.
Hold on. My question is, specifically with Hunter Schafer, sorry, I did get lost in this. Hold on one second.
The people who know Hunter Schafer, they know that Hunter Schafer is trans, right?
Oh, here's my question. What is she hiding genuinely? Because she's pretty open and honest about the fact that she is trans, which essentially means she's open about having the SRY gene. She's open and honest about having XY chromosomes. Like genuinely, what is she tricking people? Right. Yeah. But isn't that just acknowledging that the way that we treat other people in society is downstream of use cases and it's not from biology? Because Hunter is actually pretty open about the fact that our biology
I agree that Hunter Schafer mitigates a lot of the deception. I think that there is still going to be some deception there, especially if Hunter Schafer refers to themselves as a woman. But I think that a lot of that's going to be mitigated by the fact that they're very open about the fact that they're trans.
Okay, then I have a new question. Mm-hmm. Someone with Swyer syndrome or something of the sort. Maybe they're not intentional.
Is that the XY?
It's a DSD. Let me pull up my notes.
I just don't know what it is.
So there's like 4 main ones. There is one where somebody presents.
Yeah.
There's one where somebody presents as a woman, presents as a phenotypical woman, but it is XY. Androgen insensitivity.
Yes.
That's like the one that I think Hunter is trying to find.
Yes.
Sure.
There are specific types of androgen insensitivities. Mm-hmm. Swyer syndrome is one of them where they have XY chromosomes. They have the SRY gene, which is like the very specific gene on the XY on the Y chromosome that like basically flips on, and a lot of the masculine traits present. They have a typical female phenotype. You might not say that they're intentionally deceiving because they might not even know that they have it.
Yeah.
Okay. But they are, once they find out, should they correct people if they start referring to them as she? Like my friend Anna, who has Turner syndrome.
It becomes relevant.
It's relevant to what degree?
If
to what functional basis?
I think it's absolutely relevant when it comes to like any kind of romantic or sexual relationships.
Okay, come on. Okay.
I think it's going to be important
Okay,
medically.
I have a bit of a question.
You should probably say, "Hey, by the way, I can't have kids." That should probably be something you tell.
I think it's more. I think it's more than that. I think that for most people, I think for the vast majority of people, like it's something that I would want to know, and I think it's for a lot of people who have like, especially people who are religious. I think that is a relevant thing for them to find out before they choose to go forward with this person.
Okay.
Hold on, I have a question now for you too, Hunter. I have one for Lactoid and one for you, Hunter. I'll ask you first, Hunter.
Go for it.
Say you were online and you were talking to someone who you believed was a girl, and you had text messages.
Oh, I got catfished?
You had you had pictures and things. They sent you pictures, and you're like, oh, it's a girl. And you develop romantic interest in this person as you go. And then later on, you find out, oh, this was some guy from India just pretending.
Yeah, I got catfished.
You would feel a certain kind of way about that, right? Like, betrayed?
In an extreme, in an obvious sense, he was lying. Those aren't pictures of him at all. It's not just that like
So there was no pictures sent, and you just they just said they.
What do you mean they weren't pictures of him? He was presenting them as if they were him.
Yeah.
How are you guys on? Wait, are you not on my side, Lactoid? No. He shows pictures of a chick in a dress in prom with big old boobies, and he goes, "This is me." That's why I would feel dishonest.
If enough people believe that, then it would be him, right?
Hold on. That's what?
No. Staxium, Hunter.
Thank you. Thank you.
You understand? Like you're loading it. Assume, for the sake of the hypothetical, that he did not give you purposely deceptive pictures, right? That he just looked like a woman, right? He looked very girlish, like tomboyish, right? And you made that mistake. But you would still feel betrayed that he wasn't upfront with you about his gender, correct?
No. I'll give an example. No. I'll give an example because I'll give a real life example that this happened. This is kind of weird. There was forever ago. I hit this person up on Twitter because I thought she looked really cute. She had a profile picture, and it was like this like Indian chick with like very long hair. And then I realized pretty quickly that it was like an animated avatar that actually, like, I look at it again and I'm like, I see. That's just an Indian with long hair. That's actually not a woman. And like it was cartoonized, so it's like kind of hard to pick out those sufficient details. But no, I wasn't frustrated with him because he was like, "Oh, hey, you want to just chat?" And I didn't feel frustrated with him because I had no.
Well, you figured it out real quick.
What?
You figured it out quick from the start.
The specific example I was given to Hunter, I actually like agree with Hunter. I mean, if there's no actual intent to deceive, it'd be hard to like feel betrayed or to blame them. But what if there is intent? Like what if it was the classic example, like somebody who was identified as a trans Hunter and just didn't disclose it, and they were in a dating website and they were saying, "Look, I'm a woman."
So here's the thing. I think you're smuggling in. Okay, here, let me say this. I know everything about my wife, okay? Including what syndrome she might or might not have. If I'm dating someone and something that prevalent about your identity and situation isn't something that you would communicate, I would certainly go, why? Why didn't you inform me? Because that's probably pretty fucking central to who you are. It seems like you are actually, it's not that you were being not upfront with it. You were actually probably trying to hide it because if you are trans, that is probably a large part of your identity. And why did you hide this for so long?
Oh, well, there's a slight pivot happening here. I think when it comes to most syndromes or like most health issues or most of everything with like first time dates or using these dating websites or hookup apps or anything like this, I don't, as long as it's not like communicable or like or there's some kind of like large kind of social component of like why you wouldn't want to have sex with somebody who had different genetics than you thought that they did,
Yeah.
in terms of sexual way. I don't think that most people would disclose that. I don't think that's super relevant, I mean, unless they're specifically asked, right? I don't think
So
there's like a social.
I
I don't think there's a social convention to disclose that. But if a trans person, if we're talking about like this person is
Mhm.
biologically like, okay, let's say I didn't know that Hunter Schafer was trans, and Hunter Schafer just turned out to be less upfront about it. Let's just say, and then Hunter Schafer goes on Tinder, and I match with Hunter Schafer, and then
Yeah.
I go, and then Hunter Schafer sucks me off. Have I been
Uh-huh.
wronged? Have I been violated in any way?
No,
Really?
I don't think so.
Wow.
I don't think so. Genuinely, and I do think that we're often.
I disagree.
No. Hold
Strongly.
on, because I want to be clear here.
I still have the question for
because
Lactoid.
I do think that there are ways in which you could be wrong, and I could adjust your situation very slightly, and yeah, they would be in the wrong. First off, whether or not they are post-op or pre-op certainly matters, especially with sexual intercourse. Like if you are expecting, you think it doesn't matter at all.
Not in that hypo. If I'm getting a blowjob,
I understand, which is why I'm saying but there's also an expectation. I don't know how graphic we can be, Wick. Are we pushing it? I can dial it back, or I can.
No, if you want to talk about blowjobs, you can.
Okay, great.
I like my Rolexes like I like my women, all original parts.
Well, would you still feel what
There's definitely an expectation to start maybe sucking or to be.
Definitely not, bro. What kind of cuck shit is this?
No. Hold on. If a girl sucks your dick, then you're probably like, hey, maybe I should eat you out.
No,
that's probably
there's a long history in this discussion.
Maybe not an expectation, but
we are going to go to the next question because I know where this is going, and that's another conversation.
Can I say this?
You can have this debate another day.
This will be less graphic.
I think just put a bow in it. I would be very I would personally feel very deceived. I think for a lot of people, especially if they were religious, I mean, this would be a big deal.
I recognize that.
I think that like doing something with this is the case with stealthing. This is the case with almost anything where if you have some belief, some reason to believe that this person would not be okay with you doing this, and you know this or have reason to believe this because most people in society don't actually see trans women as women. I'm sorry. So you thus have reason to believe that most people would have a problem with this or that it would be relevant to most people's decisions here, and you don't disclose that, I think that's active deception. Just like if you pull out a condom and then sort of make it look like you're putting one on, but you don't actually put one on. No, you know this person would have a problem with it. It doesn't need to be explicit. It's implicit. It's implicit deception. Anyway,
I totally agree with you. Though is the thing is we would have to parse out very specific details in which is the case. I have dated. Look, I'm bi. Okay, I've dated some trans women, and they have been very upfront. They're like, "Hey, are you bisexual?" Because that would make things a lot easier just to make sure that you are cool with this.
Most are probably,
and also
sure.
Yeah, and I would always suggest to be upfront about that kind of stuff because people could be violent if they feel like they've been deceived, especially sexually. Like they feel like they've been sexually assaulted. It's a very serious. Trans people should be upfront when it comes to dating about what specifically they are, mostly because of reactions that some people might feel deceived.
And just a consistency check, it's not my question I had for you, Lactoid, but
sure.
You would also feel the same, say, if someone, a woman, right? Let's take the trans out of it. A woman's like, yeah, I believe in libertarianism, and that led you to the situation where she's sucking your dick. And then you found out later she was just saying that to suck your dick. You'd still feel deceived. It would be just as wrong.
In a world where you are really only dating.
Yeah, where you're only dating libertarians or only
libertarians.
you don't want to date. Like say you never want to date a communist, right? Mm-hmm. You're an anti-communist guy.
She's
you never want to date a communist. You never wanted a communist to touch you. And then someone, in order to suck your dick, pretends not to be a communist in order to suck your dick. That'd be just as bad as
that'd be wrong.
A deception.
Okay, I would say
that would be wrong. And this actually did happen, by the way. There on the internet for a little while. There was people who were basically saying like, "Oh, I voted for Trump, but I'm gonna get with anti-Trump chicks and say that I didn't." I thought that was fucked up. It's messed up.
Just making sure. My actual question for you, Lactoid, right?
Sure.
Technology advances all the time. We get to a world where people can download themselves into the mainframe, right? Where they can download themselves into a robot body, right? Like you've seen the robot bodies and Elon Musk where they're doing that thing. Say I did, or say you did that. Would you still consider yourself a man? Why or why not?
If I was no longer a biological entity, I would no longer be a man. I'd be some kind of genderless program.
Yeah, but no, hold on.
Sexless
Here's the issue
program.
here. Here's the
wouldn't be
issue
a
here.
man.
You would have to immediately recognize, and I hope that you immediately recognize, that our definition of man would morph. As soon as that possibility occurs, we would start
and then
talking
it wouldn't be
about
man. Yeah, but we're
in a
talking about
different-
what is a woman
Yes!
now in our current social convention. We're not talking about
Okay.
in the future some linguistic change.
Okay, imagine you are also there. I don't know what else to say.
No, Hunter. Yeah, in the future, man could shift to mean something entirely different. In the future, cat could shift to mean something entirely different. Anything could shift to mean something entirely different. I don't disagree. But I'm saying that currently, under the definition of man and woman that I've presented, that the vast majority of people subscribe to, that has very real utilitarian benefits when it comes to almost every prescription of society, not just when it comes to like sexual intercourse or when it comes to dating, but also when it comes to prisons and sports and all these other things that has real political issues. When it comes to all of this, this is very relevant. And this language is important. This language actually matters, going back to what we said before. But if we all get uploaded to some cloud where all of a sudden these differences become irrelevant, yeah, I would agree that the usage of man and woman would probably start to fall off, and we'd probably just stop using it, or
Okay,
it would
cool.
morph to mean something entirely
I'd
different.
still consider myself a man when I downloaded myself into the mainframe. I would still consider myself a man, right?
Even though you have your brain.
Why?
Or even
it's part of my identity, right? It's something that I have been all my life, and I have centered at least part of my identity and who I am around being a man and doing things that a man would, at least as I understand them. I
Like
would
what?
still consider myself a man, and I think society would probably do so as well.
I don't
I
think
think so,
so.
too.
I think if you were uploaded to the cloud, I think that in a world in which there becomes
it would be a bunch of they thems.
there becomes no reasons for like any kind of sex distinction anymore, then I think that over time, like, yeah, there might be a little bit of like some relic happening where people like might say, oh, this person did phenotypically have, and so there's some kind of continuity of language that we're going to roll with. But I think that's going to stop. I think it's going to stop relatively quickly because there's going to be no point anymore, right? If everybody's in robot bodies and all of our brains are in the cloud and everything, okay, there's no hormones anymore, so that's hormones no longer affect our thinking.
Gender roles would still exist and it would still be enforced. They very much might change, but there would be different gender roles and different positions that people would play
with the absence of hormones and bodies.
Yes, I think that's would happen.
There's a weird question of if like sex would even happen without the hormones rushing through your.
Well, hold on. We're in robot bodies.
I'm not even talking about sex. I'm not talking about sex. I'm talking about
behavior.
No,
I know, but yeah. But a lot of gender.
Because a lot of what makes someone a man, right, in different societies has not been sex. In some, it has.
Yeah,
right?
this is
a lot of times, like when you ask what is a man in a certain like society, they won't even mention sex.
I will say
just be the behavior that they engage in. And my argument here is that even if I was in a robot body, I would behave in ways that are consistent. The society would view a man.
This is I got a big the root of all of that comes down to the biology. I think there's a reason why among all societies there is a consistent social treatment of like difference in social treatment between men and women. Why, like, and in large part of this is because the different bodies and the different like physical, like the hormones and the different abilities that we possess influence our social place, influence our social standing for sure. Like in general, right? And so when women are going to be the child rearers and they're the ones that can give birth, like, yeah, their dating rituals are going to be very different because the consequences for them is going to be very different if they get pregnant. Their expected role is going to be very different as being a child bearer, all these different things. And the societal, the societal convention is based on this. And so if that goes away, the societal conventions are going to go away too.
I don't think they go away. I think they change, but I don't think they go away. I think the societal conventions will still exist. There will still be gender roles. There will still be different behaviors
based on
that different members of society are expected to behave as, but it will look different. That is true, right? But I don't think that they will cease to exist.
Okay, I have a question.
I disagree. What's up?
I kind of want to pivot the conversation a little bit because you keep asserting your definition as consistent and clear and a bunch of different.
It is the most consistent and most clear.
Do you think that my definition is inconsistent?
So hold on a second. I think the self-ID one is inconsistent, just to be clear.
Sure. I would
But
probably
the societal performance one,
wait. Why is self-ID inconsistent?
because it's not defining something other than itself. It's circular.
Okay, I could pull up a definition of a sandwich, and the definition of a sandwich is something that resembles a sandwich. That's Merriam-Webster's definition.
Yeah,
Is that circular?
That's not how I would define it. And by the way, legally, that's actually not how it was defined. There was a lawsuit about what the definition of a sandwich was. It was between, I think it was Qdoba and Panera Bread. And they were indeed, there was a discussion as to what is the thing that's being defined here. Because when we're talking about a sandwich, the contract, basically, Panera Bread had an exclusive contract to serve sandwiches within a mall.
There's a certain expectation. I understand.
Yeah. There's a social expectation. There's an understanding, a contextual understanding, like we said before, what a sandwich is. And when we talk about it, is defining something. It is defining something. And what is that? Well, a Qdoba moved in, and they started selling burritos. And then Panera sued and said, well, hold on a second. This is bullshit. A burrito is a sandwich. There's flour around it, and then there's meat, blah, 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 blah.
Okay.
It's basically a sandwich. And the court ruled, no, it's not. The court ruled that when we're referring to a sandwich, there is a specific category of food item that we're referring to. Typically, I think 2 pieces of bread with some kind of savory mixture or vegetables in between, and then the 2 pieces of bread placed on top of each other, and that's the definition of sandwich. Burrito does not fit the definition of sandwich.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I do want to say that this is one of the big issues that I have with the way that people treat definitions. I think what you're essentially saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying self-ID is inconsistent, which, by the way, I would say that it's consistent, but probably not useful. It's probably not what I would suggest, but there are certain circumstances which I would say that self-ID is helpful.
It's consistent, but not useful.
Yes, that's the construction I would use. I want to be clear. You're saying the reason why it's inconsistent is because if you define woman to be someone who identifies as a woman, then essentially you're saying someone who identifies as someone who identifies as someone, and it's infinite regress, right? Because if you
the classic question is like, so someone identifies as a woman, and then you ask like, well, what is that you're identifying as? And the response is, well, a woman, and what is that? Well, it's whoever is defined as a woman.
Here's my issue,
and then it's perpetual.
Yeah. Here's my issue with this. 2 things. First off,
and by the way, I might be using inconsistent wrong, but I'm just going to redefine it.
That's fine. That's fine. Sure.
Because there's no such thing as wrong definitions. So, go ahead.
Yes. First thing, I reject the ability to supplant definitions into phrases. That's not how any definition works. If you try looking up any definition of any word and then supplanting that into a sentence and then trying to read that as if that suddenly makes sense, it won't. Because prototype theory sort of stipulates that a definition is just trying to get the entire cluster concept, but each individual member is still just a point in that cluster. So you can't actually supplant that entire cluster into just one, and every time that you do so, it's going to be completely infeasible. You can't just take a definition and just put it into the sentence. That's just, we can try it, and I'll show you that it doesn't work.
But hold on. But with sufficient words, like you could, if you've got some cluster with sufficient words and enough information, you could go through and describe everything that fits a particular definition. But if it's in self-defining, you couldn't. Even if you had infinite words, infinite time, and infinite knowledge, you would if your definition of woman is like anybody who defines himself as a woman, if that's like if that is the definition, by definition,
we're not going to arrive at all of the information.
You could never get to any part of the cluster.
Fully disagree that that essentially what you're doing with the definition. Okay, let's
so
look
at
so
under
hold on. No.
Let Hunter go.
Fair enough.
You defined a woman as a adult human female. Yes.
Adult biological human female.
Okay,
and
cool.
then I gave
that
an
biological definition. That biological definition will never arrive at the social context that a woman occupies. You're going to completely miss that.
No.
You're gonna get fucking that girls like pink and boys like blue out of
biology. Hold on. I'm not gonna completely miss it. At most, you could say that there's like there's social conventions that correlate with this, but there's some social conventions that aren't going to for every individual.
Yeah, so you're going to miss
that's the most you can
definition.
say. But here's the thing: my definition of woman is not based on the social conventions. That's why it's more clear and concise. You can have women that like blue. You can have women with short hair. You can have women that are lumberjacks and chop down wood, and they're still women under my definition.
Yes, I agree. No. Under mine too. The way that language functions is something that Wittgenstein called family resemblances. Essentially, that like you look at a thing and you're like, oh, that is the same nose as this, and this is the same eyes as this. There is no sufficient or necessary resemblance that you need towards the archetype in order to determine if something is a member of that group. You just essentially it needs to look similar enough, and those similarities can be on a bunch of different axes. But the second thing I want to point to
my definition
is we talked a lot about like building axioms from like building arguments from axioms. Do you recognize, because I will assert that it is true, there are no axioms of language? There is no place to anchor the English language. The doesn't necessarily need to mean the. All meanings can shift wherever they want.
I don't know if that's
everything necessary. Yes, it is. Okay.
No,
what
no.
What do you think is the axiom of language?
Axioms can change. People can shift their axioms. Like,
okay, there are no axioms of language, though. What's your starting point? How do you build the English language?
You presuppose that the word because means in terms of some kind of causal. Yeah, you have to use the English language, I guess, here.
But so I'll say that there was a bunch of.
You can presuppose that these terms mean something. I don't. Here's the thing. I do think that language is an intersubjective exercise that requires presupposing certain things. I don't know if that fits the term of axiom here. It could. So I'm going to be agnostic towards whether or not there are no axioms in language.
Okay. I think really what I'm asserting,
then I can go with that.
I think really what I'm asserting is that language in itself is all connected towards each other with like different nodes and things. But those connections can vary and they can shift in different ways. And not a single node of that is anchored down to a specific location. So I feel like Lactoid would say, oh, well, then it should just shift wherever it wants. That's what Hunter is saying. And I'm saying, well, those connections need to be reified through social negotiation over and over and over again. So it's less likely for it to shift. And it seems to be functional enough that we make it work.
I don't disagree.
Okay, $5, just real quick. $5 from Hedonic Samuel says Staxioms is the man.
Wrecked.
Lactose
you got
is
fucking dead named.
Thank
you. Bro.
Yeah, your own fucking glazed super chat dead names Hunter. Okay. I don't disagree. I understand the point that you're making, Hunter. What I'm saying is that I appeal to very specific societal interests when I am asserting this as the definition.
Okay.
One of which is having the inherent the value of having a clear and concise definition that is less blurry. I also appeal to
let's get to this.
I also appeal to medical convention and social convention. But that first one I think is important because the whole reason why we had that discussion is because you asked me, do you think my definition is inconsistent? And then I brought up my little notepad and I said the self ID one I think is. Where I said, because unlike, hold on real quick, unlike my definition, which is biological, and unlike the definition that has been mostly proposed, which is societal performance, which I think they don't have the same problem as self-ID does because they are actually pointing to some kind of definition. They're pointing to some actual thing that's being described that has traits outside of the definition. Societal performance does, and biology does. Self-ID doesn't. Right? Anything can be self-ID. A cat is whoever identifies as a cat, or whatever identifies as a cat, or whatever
I agree.
thinks is a cat.
I want to be clear. I only invoke self-ID when it comes to
gender.
No. Institutions like government. Like if you're signing a slip, then obviously we're going to have to use self-ID in the same way that we always use self-ID. We use self-ID for race when it comes to like signing slips.
Yeah, but you could lie on that.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Correct.
So that there is a truth. There is still a definition that we're referring to.
No. There's not a capital T truth, but there's a recognition that society might treat you in a different way.
Oh, but that's the truth we're talking about.
I understand. So then yes, they should lie on that form.
Both of you shut up because this is going in circles, and I want to make sure that we get to actual meat as we go. Right.
I'm talking about meat right now.
Why, and this is to both of you, I'm going to let Hunter start and I'm going to let Lactoid answer after. Why should society, or how would society be better if we adopted your definition of what a woman is?
Yeah, that's a great question. And what I'm going to invoke.
What was your definition, by the way, Hunter?
Those who exhibit feminine traits. I don't know. I'd probably do something like that. I could quibble on that for sure, but it would be something like, if you share enough feminine traits. Sorry. Why would I invoke that? Why is society better off for that?
Yeah, why would society be better off if they took your approach to
I
this
believe,
question?
and this is something that I don't have all the data for. I don't have all the stats for. But I do believe that medical institutions largely recognize that social acceptance of transgender individuals lowers suicidality. That's the first point. The second point that I'm going to have is that, largely speaking, this is how people interact with women in the world, is just essentially looking at it's through it's essentially easier for people. It maps onto people's categories a little bit easier than what Lactoid is suggesting. But I would probably invoke that first one. And if that first one goes away, I'd be happy to go with Lactoids.
Specifically, if I could just repeat what I just heard, your first point is that by adopting, if society took your approach to this question, you would have less suicidality amongst trans individuals. And your second point was that it would just make it easier for society to deal with women. Is that the...
Sure. Can I clarify specifically?
Yes, you can. That's why I'm repeating it.
Yeah.
In case I got it wrong.
I fully agree. I fully agree with how you clarified one. What I usually point to bathrooms on this and say conservatives are the weird ones when it comes to bathrooms. That the way historically we've always dealt with bathrooms is through looking at someone, and if they don't look like a woman, we're like, what the fuck? That's how it works. We don't check genitals at this like fucking charging station like conservatives often want us to.
Hold on, they don't? I got some questions now.
I got some questions too.
In my life.
Yeah, but like I had I think that conservatives reassert this idea of gender enforcement at the bathroom that is incompatible with how historically we have always functioned. Like I'll give an example. My philosophy teacher was a trans woman, and she always used the women's bathroom until Utah passed a law citing that if you are a biological male found within a woman, you will be fined. And essentially, she had to go into the men's bathroom, and it was very weird for a lot of people. And she kept saying like, I go in the bathroom, and everyone's like, "What the hell are you doing here?" Because she presents fully as a woman.
Yeah, fair.
And it's like when you assert these through a biological lens, you often get very warped. It's just easier through my lens. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Thank you for your answer. Lactoid, same question to you. How would society be better off if it adopted your approach to answering this question?
Yeah, I have the advantage of going second. So I'm gonna first appeal to my intro. I think it has the fewest contradictions, is the most globally accepted, and provides us the most utility in terms of social interaction and actual purpose of sex distinctions. And then I'm gonna go through almost everything that Hunter just said and describe where my mind is better. Hunter said those who exhibit more feminine traits. I think that this is less clear because there's far more of subjective disagreement as to what feminine traits are. It's also far less accepted by most people. The vast majority of people within society are going to be much more willing to accept a masculine woman as still a woman and a feminine man as still a man. They're just going to describe them as like a little bit of like a sissy man perhaps, or like a feminine man, and then like a butch woman, right? Those are the terms that people generally use. These are the terms that people are generally comfortable with. I think that Hunter's definition is far less important or far less useful when it comes to important social structures like medical designation, which we talked about before. And I got somewhat of a designation on, or somewhat of a concession on, specifically in terms of medical designation outside of the social convention. But I think that within that social convention, it's also important. Romantic and sexual relationships, I think that the vast majority of people within America actually do see the biological answer that I gave as more useful in terms of romantic and sexual interactions, besides perhaps some small community of, let me just cook for a second, the small community of, I think, more left-leaning people, very left-leaning people perhaps. Social interaction generally, prisons and prison safety, women's sports, spas and waxing clinics, we're seeing lawsuits like that happening in Canada, and the bathroom thing. I think it's clear that this is not just like, this is an impositional project, right? It is an imposition on language. The imposition is the social structure. We have to engage in some kind of level of social engineering and shift the social structure to accommodate a very small group of people, where I would argue that the small group of people, in a second, it's somewhat irrelevant to the topic, but in a second, that there's a lot of other issues going on with this very small group of people. When it comes to bathrooms, I would agree. I don't think anybody's like actually checking people's genitals. That would surprise me. I know that this is like
they're not.
This is the thing that people bring up, like, oh, you're going to check people's genitals. And yeah, historically we haven't had to do this because historically, transgenderism is a relatively new thing in terms of being within social vogue. And even now within social vogue, it's a very small group of people, and has largely exploded around the same time as social media exploded, around 2014. Beforehand, if you want to go back in the day, this was probably, bathroom issue probably wasn't even an issue, because trans people, you're going to find an occasional person. You're going to find an occasional person. There's examples. I'm sure you're going to bring up.
I obviously agree that there are more
trans.
San
Francisco, but this wasn't an issue. Yeah. This wasn't an issue. And so, obviously we're going to have to deal with defending social institutions and social conventions against threats to those social institutions and social conventions, of course.
Okay, here's my question then.
Just real quick, $5 from Hedonic Samuel to say, to quote Jordan Peterson, if you want to know what a woman is, marry one and find out. Parentheses, it's a good answer, even if he's lost his mind.
I low-key agree.
Did he actually say that?
Understand? Yeah.
I don't know if he actually said that.
No, he did say that. I remember
the
that.
super chat.
I don't like that answer.
Yeah, I know. So here's my question. What do you suggest that we do with bathrooms? Because you have to recognize a lot of people are transgender now. Not a lot, but like a proportion of society. I think they're at what, like 2%?
Here's what you do.
15 million people?
Yeah. You make it a rule, and you enforce that rule to whatever extent that is appropriate, socially appropriate. How I would enforce it. Sports, I would just be like, we're just stopping that. Easy ban on that one. When it comes to bathrooms, I'm not in favor of the whole checking people's genitals before they go in, but you simply have it this is the men's room, this is the women's room. Are there going to be people who break the rules? Sure. I've seen drunk men walk into the women's room. This happens. But what you do is you don't let these people sue the private company for having this rule. That's what you do. You
what a non-answer.
You don't have it in No, this is not a non-answer. I'm saying you have the rule.
Yes, it is.
And then you enforce the rule to whatever extent is socially acceptable. I'm not saying put these
but how do you enforce that rule? How could you? All you have is a basis of how they appear.
Yes,
you don't have their chromosomes.
Look, this is how you enforce a rule. There are certain rules that are very difficult to enforce. I don't disagree. If the restaurant sees somebody going into the bathroom that is very manly, masculine presenting, because I'm sorry, the vast majority of trans people, you can tell. There's some exceptions.
Okay.
You got to look at the exceptions, of course, but the vast majority you can tell. And if they say, look, I don't want you in there, you're making other people uncomfortable, or this is a woman's only gym, I don't want you here, or this is a woman's only spa, I don't want you here, you have to leave. Then
I have a question.
Yeah, then they leave or they get trespassed, and they don't get to sue them under some kind of human rights statute that location has put forward. Yeah, that's how you enforce it. I have a question about
this.
Go ahead.
What if they want a white?
Do you recognize? Okay.
You know my belief in that too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's pro whites only. He just believes that would be pushed out of society.
I wouldn't eat there. I wouldn't eat at the whites only bar.
And enough people would.
You have a blacks only bar too.
Hassan would eat there, but not you. You're not white. So.
Why is he not white?
Society doesn't see lactoid as white. So.
True. Okay, lactoid. Here's the question, and here's the real issue with a lot of this. Do you recognize that there are not it's not an insubstantial amount of people who are cis and do not present as such? Like you as the little boy, and you go into the boys' room. Do you think that the restaurant owner should start yelling at you because he thinks that you're a girl?
The restaurant owner should have the right to kick me out. If the restaurant owner, now when it comes to children, I think that the vast majority of places I know, and I think this should socially be the case, that children just simply don't pose the risks that adult men do, and they don't make women uncomfortable in the same way that adult men do.
Okay.
And so I think that nobody's going to care about a child going.
That's not my question. That's not my question. Yes, I can extend it onto adults.
Okay, but I'm challenging the framing of the question, but then I will answer the question directly, like I always do.
Cool.
Like I always do.
Okay.
Yes, the restaurant should be able to kick me out, and the restaurant and rules are sometimes mistakenly enforced. Sometimes you arrest the guy who didn't do the crime. This is not an argument against having rules.
Okay. Here's
sometimes
my
you
issue.
Get it, hold on, real quick. Do you concede that sometimes you get it wrong, but this is not an argument against having rules?
Sure, yes, but
Hold
I'm
on,
gonna have
hold
to
on.
compare
But
it
if
against
you
my
have
system.
a rule in place that is consistently being misenforced, right? There would probably be something either in the way we are enforcing it, the way we're defining that rule, the way that we're interpreting that rule, that we might want to change, correct?
It's almost like
But
we
historically,
have
I don't think this rule has been misenforced. I think that if you go back through all of history, business owners were, of course, free to kick out somebody out of their store because they thought they were using the women's restroom.
But we should probably allow for a society that is a little bit more understanding of people that maybe don't fit our prototypical understanding of what a man and a woman looks like, because there are plenty of people who sit outside of that spectrum, and like, what are they supposed to do? Like, there's a really good example. I forget the name.
This never was a problem, like you pointed out.
No. It was never a problem to you or to me or to Wick, because we all look
like
men.
Vast majority of people. You're
right. I agree. And I would say, maybe this is a concession. I don't know. I don't think it is. Our systems of how we determine how men and women are largely the exact same. They are very, 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 very compatible. We have to look at the margins when we determine this, because I would say, okay, well, me, you, and Wick are all men. And you would say, me, Hunter, and Wick are all men. And for the vast majority of people, we're all going to agree.
First of all, new poll. Who is the most manly of all three? To the winning poll, there's 56 votes in. Lactoid's winning with 55%, and we're going to end that now. I'm going to put a new poll in, but go ahead.
It's cheating because I don't have a beard.
Probably, but anyway, new poll. I'm going to give you three options: Wick, Lactoid, or Hunter, and you get to decide.
Of course, they're going to vote for you, Wick.
Most manly.
No, but this is a great example of the gradients of categories here. That, like, we can say who is the most man. There's this famous example of Eleanor Roche, this linguist, did this study, because before then Aristotle posited that all categories can fit into necessary and sufficient conditions, and Eleanor Roche had this question, like, how furniture is this object? And that sounds completely nonsensical, and maybe you'll just concede this whole thing and I can brush past it, but we just don't think in necessary and sufficient conditions. Largely how we organize things is with blurriness, because I'll just give she gave like sofa, desk, chair, telephone, things that like exist that we would largely call furniture, and people are remarkably this is a meaningful question to them, that they could say that a sofa is more furniture than a telephone. And also, this is consistent amongst most people. Like, almost everyone agrees that a sofa is more furniture than a telephone. Like, this gets reified constantly through negotiation. Anyway, I don't know if that's...
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think
that's not meaningful at all to you.
Even if I had a complete like feminine meltdown right now, which I'm not going to have. I think we've had a pretty relaxed conversation thus far. But if I had a complete feminine,
you'd probably rank last.
I'd probably rank last, but I wouldn't make me. But it wouldn't make me a woman. Like actually,
I agree.
You might call me. You might call me a woman.
It probably doesn't mean the threshold, because you have all family resemblances except your meltdown.
No, I could do anything. I could do any behavior right now.
Any individual behavior, sure, because it's a cluster of categories. No, if you hit everything though, and you shave your beard, you have
shave makeup, my beard. Yeah, right now Okay, well, hold on.
You get facial reconstruction surgery to look more feminine.
Okay, hold on. I don't think you want to go down that road where you think facial reconstruction surgery is going to be the required. Okay.
It's not the requirement. That wasn't my point.
Let's stick with it. Like what I think that you would define as sufficient for other trans people. Okay. If right now I pulled out a razor and I shaved my beard, then I pulled out a makeup kit right now on this very panel, and then I did a whole bunch of makeup, and then I started like having a feminine kind of breakdown, and I started like talking about how these men are evil and how these men like they get all upset, you know, and
let's find out.
And I start complaining about how men don't eat out pussy, like all this, you know, very very woman coded shit, right? I start talking about horses, or whatever the fuck women talk about, yeah. And and then you would say, Lactoid, you really are a woman. Is that what you would say?
No. Here,
let's find out. Do it.
I'm not.
Science, bitch.
We would need a very large donation.
So there is a sufficient donation.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Well, they're
We just
asking.
have to
Letty
find that.
Waterkai is asking, how much do we have to pay to make this
Yeah,
happen?
it's too
We'll
much.
split it.
Yeah, your
Me
audience
and you.
can't. No, your audience can't afford
Okay,
it.
we'll split it. Me and you.
No,
Well,
I'm saying
give me
we're talking about
It's a
amounts
good
that for me to
question.
do that would be like extraordinarily high.
10 grand. Would you do it for 10 grand?
10 grand for me to. I don't have any makeup.
You would go. I would keep this stream open, and you could go get the fucking makeup for 10 fucking grand. Okay.
No.
So here's the thing.
I'm not doing
Lactoid.
it.
I'm probably gonna bite a bullet here.
Okay, go ahead.
And this is gonna make me look transphobic for sure. Okay. So like there is some
my
gradients
ultimate
to
goal.
this. Yeah, true. Look, my fiat is don't be a dick. But would I recognize that if you wore a dress and makeup and shaved your beard and was like actively trying to look like a woman, even though you really weren't passing, like most people look at you and they go, that looks like a man in a dress, looks like a man who's trying to look like a woman, you would be certainly more of a man than a woman because you are societally treated as such.
No, look, hold on. First of all, I'm gonna say two things. There's going to be a lot of trans people that are pissed at you about that opinion.
I understand.
But
wait, hold on.
But,
hold on. To those people, I would say, don't you agree that people are treating? Hold on. Don't you agree that people would be treating you less as a woman and more as a man? And if you understand that my ontology, my reality is just how people treat you, then this isn't a prescription. This isn't a prescription. This is just a description that the way that society functions currently is largely you are going to be seen more as a man than a woman. However, I would say don't be a dick. If you could tell that someone's being trying to look like a woman, just be nice and say she. Okay, that's my prescription.
Okay, so a couple things.
Yeah,
there's the first thing, which I mean, fair enough. You're never going to make them all happy. I think most. My guess is, and I actually haven't seen research on this, so I could just be flat wrong. This is just my guess. This is just my intuition.
Yeah, go for it.
My intuition is most people who are transgendered probably go off self-ID. They probably are going off this sort of like that's their belief. Like their belief is,
I don't agree with this.
If somebody says they are the thing, then they actually are a thing. That's what I think it is. And
I want to be clear. I want to be clear. It is very possible because how I've arrived at this conclusion is I have two very close trans friends who I have conversations with a lot about this kind of stuff, and maybe it's being filtered through their way of looking at this. But yeah, they get very frustrated with like, oh, what's you're just saying you can just look like if I just declare I'm a woman, I'm suddenly a woman. Come on, there definitely has to be some recognition or presentation.
Well, they would call that insincere. And they would say that if you sincerely call yourself a woman, then you are.
Well, if you sincerely, I think that's a way to brush past the point because they would say if you're sincere about it, you would actively try. You'd want to get surgery. You would want to shave your beard. You would want to. And maybe you don't have the money necessarily.
That's what they're going to say. Well, that's privilege. You know, you're saying as a white man, it's very privileged to be able.
Okay, Jesus Christ. We're not arguing with those people right now. Okay, this is why we're.
I know we're not arguing with
those people. Aren't here anymore.
I know we're not arguing with those people. I was simply saying, you're going to piss those people. I'm just making an observation. Like those people are going to be pissed off about that.
The trans people, I know fully agree with.
I'm glad that they will still like you.
And
but the second thing I wanted to make,
I only have a small. There's only a small. It's only a small percentage, right? It's anecdotal data.
Well, it's a small percentage of a small percentage. I understand.
Yeah,
but I would say there's some housekeeping stuff. So first of all, we are running into time soon, so we're going to be winding this down. Unless you guys start ponying up, open up your wallets, get some donations in, and then we might open this up for call-ins if the two people are amenable. Also, they didn't super chat this, but this is funny. Karen D. Hippie says, I'd like Hunter to be my chair right now. So cool.
Hell yeah.
However,
he's a married man, Hunter, you harlot.
In the poll, who is the most man, Hunter's in distant third at 11%. Lactoid is second with 33%.
I knew Wick was going to get it.
Wick as the most audience. Man with 56%. Okay. So anyway, but yeah, just like kind of like a 10-minute warning here that we're going to be winding down soon. Go ahead.
That's fine. But so yeah, I'll try to get it back on track to where the last point that was made.
Yeah.
So I think I said most of them are probably self-ID. You're saying that within
I think
your
I don't think that's true.
Sure. And we're
Yeah.
we're going off of like a competing anecdotal experiences because I haven't seen any stats on this.
You could be
my,
right.
My experience.
Wait. Could I say? Could I just say you are also listening to the loudest trans people who are usually
angry at me, right? So they're going to be very loud. Yeah.
There's a survivorship bias to this. Not saying you're necessarily
I'm not going to make that
wrong,
joke. I'm not going to make that joke.
Oh, shut the fuck up.
Anyway, so
That's
you
crazy.
I mean, he made
That's
a Charlie
crazy,
Kirk joke before. I mean, that was fucked up. We have to brush past that. Okay. Anyway,
I didn't brush past it. I said Jesus Christ.
You did. Yeah,
come on.
Yeah. Look, you have. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah. I
also am unfortunately used to those jokes a little bit more.
I'm sorry. That was a horrible experience. Anyway.
It's all good. Continue.
In my anecdotal experience, most appear to be self-ID. Now, I would agree that there could be some difference here. It could be that, I mean, there clearly appears to be a correlation between identifying as transgender and the want to participate in some kind of performance. I think that's obviously clear. Like they're obvious, and that could be because I think what a lot of trans people, their belief probably is like, well, I am this, but I just need to like convince people that I am this, and the best way to do that is through some kind of performance.
Right, that's not what I would say, but that is.
But in some ways, they are appealing to some kind of like underlying definition that's not based on
ontology,
which I am too. But I'm actually appealing to something concrete, as appealing to something that's entirely nebulous. Nebulous instead of inconsistent, I think, is a better term. I'm appealing to something concrete instead of something entirely nebulous.
Sure. And I would say, just as an anti-realist, I would probably say there's nothing to anchor this into like reality. There's nothing to point to specifically. So I would say like this ontology that like you are a woman and that is like how you are, that's like a real thing that we could point to or assert, I think is nonsensical.
I mean, you would agree that a biological woman or a biological female is a real physical tangible thing that you can point to.
That she is real.
Hold on, no, yeah, but we can say it just in terms of like the material. Like you would agree. I would say this for man too. I'm not being sexist now. I'll be sexist later. I've got no problem being sexist.
Sure.
But I'm not being sexist now. I'm saying that like when we're talking about like in physical reality, there is something that is a biological thing.
There are facts of the matter.
And one of the facts of the matter is there are creatures that exist on the planet, and those creatures I refer to as woman are these creatures that have 2 X chromosomes, and they got usually not always breasts and all that shit.
Yes,
all the good
yes,
stuff. Yeah.
But,
okay.
I would say yours is more concrete, but yours is also less accessible. Do you agree with that? Do you concede that?
Hold on. Depending on how you mean
less
by accessible. Because
accessible,
the vast majority of the world agrees with me, so I think it's more accessible in that way.
Hold on. There's a distinction here, and I think this is really.
It's less accessible in terms of identification, for sure.
There's an important distinction between how we think and how we think we think. You are asserting how we think, which is we think that. Pretentious me with the philosophy degree. I apologize. There is a way that we believe we engage with the world, where we just go. I don't know.
Donald Rumsfeld.
Is that a?
It's an old fucking political joke. I'm old. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's been okay. There's this way that we think we engage with the world, where we determine things based off of biological sex. You would be right that most people think they're doing that, but when we look at their actual actions, the way that they participate in society, the way that they refer to other people, I would flatly reject your assertion. I would say they absolutely use facial recognition and cues to determine if they are a man or a woman. And there is tension there. I agree. No. But I would say that if we want to assert Occam's razor, it makes sense to use their usage rather than how they think they use things.
No. I think they're looking at the biology. They're looking for the biology. And because nobody has like a gene measurement device.
They're looking for their biology?
Yes. But because nobody has a gene.
Hold up.
Yes, they are. They've always have been. But because there's no gene measuring device that people have on them yet, they're looking at proxies. They're looking at indicators. Okay. Like, so for example,
before we even knew biology
if I'm going to go get yes, but they're still, before we even knew biology exists, like they're still looking at something like inherent, right? God made Adam, God made Eve. That's what they were thinking about before biology. They're looking at something inherent, and this is their understanding. It's not.
They're looking at the facts of the matter.
Yeah, it's not based on performance. It's based on how God made you, at least before. And now, amongst all the condemned atheists, it's more about how nature made you, the actual biology of it. I think that's fundamentally what society is caring about. But because we can't just like detect that immediately in someone's genes unless we study them, unless we take some kind of sample, we're looking for proxies that tend to closely approximate. And this is what we do for all taxonomy. When I go to buy a cat,
I agree with you.
I could accidentally buy a non-cat. I could buy a giant rat that somebody dressed up like a cat. Yeah, it's exactly like Leo and Stitch. Thank you. It's possible I buy an alien.
Yeah,
it's possible. But
and it looks like a dog.
But I'm not looking to buy an alien. I would be upset if I bought an alien.
Okay.
This is not my purpose. Yeah. My purpose is to buy the thing that it is, and the thing that it is a cat.
If I may bring in a little recent
some masculinity
topical,
according to the poll.
Right, topical issue here. I'm going to ask you guys a question whether or not this is deceptive. Let me share my screen.
Watch screen.
So if you can't, I can't make it bigger, unfortunately. So if you can't see, this is Abdul Al-Said saying, "Hi, my name is Dr. Abdul Al-Said. I want to talk to you about why I got into politics and why I'm here to stay, blah, blah, blah." Recently was revealed, that the Michigan Democrat Senate candidate Abdul Al-Said had for years say he's a physician, but there's overwhelming evidence that he's had no experience as a licensed medical professional.
This is a great question.
Is he lying? Is he being deceptive?
I would say yes, and let me clarify. Clarify, because it looks like this is a clincher against me, right? Because didn't society just distinguish him as a doctor, or wasn't he sufficiently convinced?
They all believed he was.
The example that I've What?
They all believed he was a doctor.
Right, but there are different types of deceptions. The example that I'm going to give is there is this type of doctor, okay, where you've got a lab coat and you call yourself Doctor. Wait, so what is he actually?
I think he's let me look.
He's not a doctor though.
Let's assume he's
just to be super clear. He's just a dude.
No, I think he's
got a doctorate in fucking arts.
Hold on, he has a medical degree, so technically he is correct when he says he's a doctor.
But no, sure.
Dressing
but
like
he's not
this,
a physician.
Saying you're a doctor, people make assumptions about what you are.
No, sure.
He's not covered under. Yeah, you know what I mean.
Sure. The way that society largely can we just say he got like his doctorate in arts? Because
sure.
Just take that.
Yeah, I'll roll with it.
Cool, and he just wore a lab coat because he
wore a lab coat, pretended to be a doctor.
Great, because I don't know the actual facts of the matter. If those aren't the case, if maybe
it's all good.
Great, let's just pretend he did that.
Again, this is topical, so I don't either.
No, it's a good question. Yeah.
Right?
But we are going to take a case in which he is being completely dishonest, right? Like that he is. There is in no circumstances should he be raising his hand if they're asking for a doctor on an airplane. Okay, there is some idea of doctor that's socially constructed. In which we recognize that there's an institutional basis towards it. There is you passed medical school, you work at a hospital. There are some facts of the matter that you were referring to that are expected. Now, what I would say is you could still be deceptive and be a doctor. Like let's say Abdul Al-Said lied on his admission to medical school, and he never actually got his bachelor's. Okay, but he got into the medical school. He somehow squirmed his way into being a doctor. I would say that person is a doctor and was deceptive. But because he was still recognized by that institution. But in this case, no, he was not he is deceptive and not a doctor. Does that make sense?
I think I have you on something. I think I got you when I got you. So I'm just going to be very upfront with it. So you just said it is deception because society. I think I'm going to. It might be a slightly different words, but this is the gist of what you said. Because society accepts there is still some institutional basis for it. I'm pretty sure that's very close to what you said.
Yes.
For being a doctor. Do you also agree that society accepts there is some biological basis for it in terms of definition of woman?
I don't.
Even if the people believe that the person is a woman.
I don't think that's how people are navigating around the world.
In what area are you talking about? You don't think in America?
I'm talking about America.
What would it take if I gave you a poll? Like, what would the number have to be of Americans who? Because I'm thinking most Americans reject the idea of like the transgender thing. They just do. Most Americans believe it is biological at birth. And so if we're going to accept society on that, if we're going to accept society when it comes to their belief that doctors need to have some kind of institutional backing, and thus the doctor is lying, or the supposed doctor is lying, then if society also accepts that there needs to be some kind of biological basis, like you would assert as an institutional basis, what's the distinction?
Yes. Here's the distinction, okay? If Abdul El-Sayed, there's a picture of him and he's wearing a lab coat, and he comes out afterward and he's like, hey, by the way, I'm not a doctor. Like, I just want to be super clear. I'm not a physician. And that lab coat was just, and like, he gives some explanation for why he was wearing a lab coat. He's like, people keep thinking that I'm a doctor, but I want to be super clear. I'm not. Like, that is not deception. You would agree? Even though he looked like people expected him to be.
Say it one more time.
Let's just say there was some reason he was wearing a lab coat. Okay, he was on set and he was playing a lab coat in a play or something, and then someone took a picture and then added a little thing. I'm Dr. Abdul El-Sayed, and he's like, hey, just to be clear, and he says this on all of his videos. He says it to everyone he knows, and he makes a post about this. He's like, hey, I'm not a physician, and I think that some people might think I'm a physician, but I'm not one. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think
that's not deception, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Don't trans people do that when they call themselves trans, when they recognize, they're like, hey, I'm a trans, by the way.
No,
it's not deceptive just because, wait, hold on.
No,
Hold
on. When I'm talking about deception, I'm talking about like something that is like morally like an action that's morally condemnable. I think that a trans person is just wrong. I don't think that they're morally condemnable if they're upfront about it and like they're just like giving what I would believe to be a wrong opinion. People can have wrong opinions and not necessarily be doing something morally condemnable as long as they're being transparent.
Okay, great.
So when it comes to this,
I would definitely disagree with the moral, but okay.
I understand. Well, hold on. I don't think you would.
No. Sorry, I would disagree with your ontology that they're wrong.
You disagree that I think
I don't know
wrong.
what you would base this. Yeah.
Sure.
But yeah, I would obviously they're not morally.
But when it comes to the doctor, so even if in this case he's lying, but you would say he's not a doctor, even if most people saw him on TV as a doctor, and even if let's say he came out with a correction afterwards and most people didn't see it. I don't think he's being deceptive. But most people are still wrong, and most people believe him to be a doctor, and they're wrong about him being a doctor because they have this belief that a doctor requires some kind of institutional basis, which I agree with. I also think that if you see somebody and you think they're a woman, and society, if anybody in society were to see somebody and think they're a woman, they could be wrong because the society does believe in a biological basis for a woman. And this is
you do assert that quite a bit.
This is on polls. I just looked it up.
Did you show me? Let me read a couple of things. Quantum Fantasy member for 19 months. Thank you for the tier 1 membership. Says, say you're a woman in a super chat, and Wick will too. True. Edonic Samuel for $5 more. Thank you, brother. Says, let's all take a moment to pray for Grassroots Hegemon. Also, it's Adam and Steve.
What happened?
Thank you for the $5. What happened to Grassroots Hegemon? Is he okay? Like, is that serious?
I don't even know who that is.
I think
I know who Grassroots.
No, I think I know. If I'm mistaken on this, I very deeply apologize. But I was listening to Connor. I'm pretty sure he is in some kind of treatment, some kind of rehab stuff. So I hope
Connor's in
I've seen him on my channel.
Connor is
a different guy.
I hope he's okay.
Counterpoints isn't okay?
No. Counterpoint.
No, Counterpoint. It's a chatter guy. Grassroots Hegemon is a chatter guy who's been he's chatted on the show. I don't think he's ever appeared, but he's been in the chat and I've seen him and I know who he is. I'm sad to hear that he's going through it. I hope he gets better.
Connor is not going into rehab as far as I know.
Why are we talking about Connor?
Because he talked about Grassroots Hegemon, I believe.
Okay, I don't know what that. Okay, I'm sorry for whoever is going through a hard time. I can't even follow who is. I apologize.
Connor's going through a hard time too, but for other reasons.
Gotcha.
Why is Connor going through a hard time? Have you not heard, Wick?
Oh, is that a joke?
Oh no, it's open. It's open news. There's no secret. Connor's divorced.
I did not know that either. I'm learning so much today. Well, I don't know whether to congratulate him or console him, honestly. It depends how he feels.
He's handling it well, but it's obviously a sad thing.
Okay. Wow, now I'm sad. Like, that's really rough.
It is sad, yeah.
I did not know that.
I reached out to them
sorry.
and I said, sorry, brother. I mean, it sucks to go through. I hope he's doing okay.
Hold on. Polygraph says Wick, he is a right winger. What the fuck does it have to do with anything about what we're talking? Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt the thing, but that was just such a weird fucking comment.
Are you playing? Oh, never mind. Sorry.
No, this isn't chat. Polygraph lie detector, right? There's a guy in
that's
chat.
crazy.
He said it out. Like, what?
Yeah,
does
but he's
that
a
have
right
to
winger,
do?
so I hope he dies of cancer.
Like, what are we talking about here? He's a right winger. What does it have anything to do with whether or not we should console, congratulate, how we should feel about someone who's going through a rough time?
Well, we could probably assert that what this person means is that because he is a right winger, he is not deserving of sympathy.
I don't know. That's a disgusting comment.
I
You're
agree.
a disgusting person, and
that shit sucks, bro.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry about that.
I say this is a pretty prominent left winger.
Stream. So we're
hear
gonna
ya.
get closing statements go, and because we've gone a little over time, and I'll give you a chance to have your last words. Tell people where you can find you. I have a link to each of these lovely individuals' descriptions in my YouTube channel, right, where you can go and find them and give them a sub, give them a follow, whatever you need. Tomorrow, we're gonna have the soy pill. We're gonna have Dev. He has confirmed. We're gonna have Ice Beams. We're gonna have Tally. And I think there's one more. I forget who. I'd have to check. Anyway, we're going to talk populism tomorrow. What is it? Why should it matter, right? Is populism something we should use? Is populism something we should fight against? When should we use it? How should we use it? When should we not? It's going to be a discussion more than a debate specifically, but I'm sure there'll be disagreements as we go. Tune in for that. It's tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern. But for now, closings to these lovely individuals. Go ahead. First to Hunter, then to Lactoid. Hunter, go ahead.
Cool. I don't know if I have anything necessarily new to say. I'm going over my notes, and I think I said almost everything. One of my big prescriptions that I have is don't be a dick. That's really, at the end of the day, I think you should learn how language and categories work, but that's always just kind of fun to do. If you see someone who you don't think is, if you see someone who looks like a man going in a woman's bathroom, probably berating them and screaming at them is probably not going to lead to a more functional society and high trust society. And that's really what I care about. So I want to make sure that we all have liberal values and are able to interact with each other in a cohesive manner. And I do think that, I don't know, don't be a dick. I think that's it. I'm Hunter E. Kozak. You can find me pretty much anywhere. But I'm mostly on TikTok and Twitter.
Check them out, gang. Thank you for coming. I do appreciate you. And I hope you enjoyed the moderation, enjoyed the discussion. Let's give it to Lactoid. Go ahead. Oh, we can't hear you, Lactoid.
You hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. In my intro, I talked about how the definition I presented, which I'm still sticking to, is adult biological female person, specifically defined as a individual member of the species Homo sapiens sapiens, with the absence of a Y chromosome as a sex chromosome, such as XX chromosomes, as their sex chromosomes, as opposed to XY most commonly. I think this definition has the fewest contradictions. I do think it's the most globally accepted, and it's even the most accepted, I think, in America. And it provides the most utility, I think, in terms of social interaction and also really a lot of the purposes of sex distinction. There was obviously a lot said, but, and I hope I'm not strawmanning here, the definition that Hunter presented was, somebody who exhibits feminine traits or a sufficient level of feminine traits. As I said before, I think that this is much, it's not conducive to the purposes I feel of effective language. I think it's far more subjective as to what feminine traits are. I think this definition is much less accepted by the plurality of society. It's going to be much more difficult to work with. It's far more nebulous and arbitrary. Maybe not arbitrary, but definitely nebulous. It's far less useful in terms of important societal structures like medical designation, sexual interactions, prisons and prison safety. That's not something we talked about. I mean, there's currently people who are impregnating people in prison. I think that that's a problem. Women's sports. I mean, that's something that's been being pushed back on a lot. I think that whole situation was wild. Spas and waxing clinics. You're seeing lawsuits like that happening in Canada, and you're seeing a lot of this kind of social structures. I think that I do think provide social utility. attempting to be eroded really for the benefit of a very small, very radical portion of our society. And this is the meanest I'm going to be, but it's just true. A dramatically disproportionately mentally ill portion of our society in terms of I think some studies put the upper rates of personality disorders as up to upwards of 80%, 40 to 80%, which is dramatically higher than the general population. Narcissistic personality disorder, borderline, etc. Significantly higher rates of autism. The Swedish government, for example, has recognized autism as I think a covariate or some kind of contributing factor when it comes to trans treatment. I mean, this is being recognized by governments, and I don't know. I think that the linguistic benefits of having this definition of woman is better, and I think it makes more sense. And I think there's a reason why we have always had this. I also want to thank everybody here for being super cool, and I want to echo one thing that Hunter said, which is I'm not a big fan of hate politics. You heard them just say, hey, just because somebody's a right winger doesn't mean that you should dehumanize them. That's something that's happening a lot. I couldn't agree more, obviously, not only for selfish reasons, but also I think political polarization and bullying and demonization is really bad. And I would apply that to transgendered people as well. Don't be a dick. I agree with that. Don't be mean. Don't bully people. I mean, the way to deal with this, even if you disagree with them or not, the way to deal with this is not by attacking somebody or making them feel awful and genuinely trying to hurt them. Try to avoid doing that. Obviously, you make your points and stand by your principles, but do so in the nicest way that you can.
Okay. Thank you for being here. I appreciate both of you. And remember, gang, tune in tomorrow. Are either of you still going to be streaming after this?
I got work to do.
No, I'm calling it.
In that case, I'll just end the stream. I love you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow for some slopulism, boys and girls. It'll be fun. It'll be great. It'll be awesome. And yeah, and I just want to reiterate, I disagree with counterpoints on the ICE stuff and a few other things, right? He's still someone deserving of sympathy and empathy, like almost everyone on Earth.
Yeah, he's no Gibbs. Okay.
Even Gibbs deserves sympathy.
I'm joking. Me and Gibbs are chill. I use that example because we're friends, maybe.
I worry that we have more and more a lot of people thinking, well, this group does a bad thing, so we can do it too. And when it comes to empathy specifically, right? Like the excuse that is being thrown around in my chat is like, well, Republicans dehumanize people all the time. Yeah, that's why I'm not a Republican. I agree with you. They do. That's why we shouldn't do it. Or that doesn't mean we should do it because they do it too. And the fact that you act like a Republican, I mean, I guess let's hope people hold you to a different standard than you hold others to. I'll just say that. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.
Appreciate you.
Oh, how'd it go?
Jesus, Wick, do you see this last comment here by Polygraph Light? We are celebrating his wife getting her freedom.
Yeah, the whole thing was gross. This guy is gross, though, in general. He keeps calling me he's always just a shit stirrer. But no, he sincerely believes that, I don't know. It bothers me, and I don't know what to do about it, right? Because then you'll look at the other side, I'll go into right-wing spaces and, look at the stuff that they said about Renee Good and things like, oh, she deserved it, and they made all these pictures of her getting, shot and things, and I don't know. It's pretty crazy how people are just willing to cheer on the bad things that happen to you if you're on the other political aisle, and I hate it. I don't like it. I don't like that world.
It's polarization, and it's getting worse. Yeah, it sucks. Something that is bad.
If you got into an accident and you lost your arms and legs, I would be sad.
And it's possible. I ride a motorcycle, so.
And the sad thing is, and this is the thing, one of the reasons that I've stopped talking about my life,
and I'm still streaming, by the way, just so you're aware.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. One of the reasons I've stopped talking about my life online to any kind of specific degree, whether I'm doing good or doing bad, is because there are people who, if something were to befall me, or something to befall my family, or something to befall someone I loved, there are people who would cheer that on.
Oh, for
Who
sure.
would celebrate, who would openly be happy that happened, simply because I disagree with them publicly. Like when my dog died last year, right? Tinkerbell. Poor Tinkerbell.
Yeah.
There were some comments, right, made by
No.
people like there were some comments like it's pretty gross what they said. So
No, it's fucked
yeah,
up.
it is, but that's where we are. So here we are. Anyway, man, thanks
All right.
for coming on. Nice to see you again. We'll have you on more often, man. Okay.
Thanks for having me on.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Peace, Wick. Republicans do not suck, Testicle Johnson. Republicans do not suck. Republicans. What is that thing from Key and Peele? Republicans are. You know who likes national defense? Republicans. I miss you, Testicle Johnson. What else we got? Fairy Queen, large and small gametes, sex, not chromosomes. That's interesting. I would say it's the chromosomes that's associated with large and small gametes. Because then, of course, there's the pitfall of, well, what if somebody doesn't produce them? And it's rare, but I don't believe doesn't make sense. Doesn't fit. All right, Testicle Johnson. I did mention that I rode a motorcycle at the end there. You see that? Oh, cool. Come back to Whitcourt in June. All right, we're gonna raid. Wick raided. He's done. So we're gonna raid into who? Who do I like? Who is fun? Who is fun? Who is fun? Who is fun? Speaking of masculine man, I'm gonna rate to the most masculine man I know. This guy is a fucking Hulk. Okay, this guy. If I thought of one single person who embodied the phenotype and the characteristics of man, it's this guy. I just can't think of anybody else. Like, my God, this guy's masculine as fuck. So tell him, hey, be nice, of course. And I'll see you guys next time.
This shrimp would support the Shrimp Welfare Project. This is why this is effective alternate finance. Yo, Lactoid.